Good evening. Happy Friday. It is July the 9th, 2021, and we're just under about 12 hours, a little over 12 hours, away from the start of Hobbypalooza. So we've also got 19 more days, unofficially, until the start of the National. So we're starting to make our way towards both of those things that we talked about a little bit. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Hobbypalooza tonight. That's going to be one of the topics. So starting off with just myself, I did invite a couple of folks to join me, so we'll see if they pop in throughout the evening. But we're going to have a chance to talk about a couple of these things. So we'll talk Hobbypalooza, and then we'll also talk about Alt doing its special announcement this week about the Steph Curry 2009 National Treasures Rookie Man, Logo Man. Basically the one-of-one card, and then coming up with a valuation. And I did a video earlier this week about the whole idea about a valuation versus an actual purchase. Part of the problem I had with it, just to give you a little heads up on kind of where I'm going to go with it again, is that they called it a purchase, even though in reality it was more, I would consider it more of a valuation, which is fine. That's its own thing. But basically they're two different things to me. They're kind of two different categories. You want to call it a record valuation? Go for it. You want to call it a purchase? For me, then a purchase requires you to actually buy the thing outright. Not partially, not sort of, but outright. So we'll definitely get into that some more. So good evening, Paul. Just some of the usual, we'll let some of the usual folks pop in. One other thing I'll mention as well is that as we go along, if there's anything else that you guys want to talk about, it's the usual thing. If there's anything else you guys want to talk about, you're more than welcome to kind of interject that, and we can talk about it a little bit more, but that'll be kind of where we'll go with it. So good evening to Jeff as well. So let me kind of start off here a little bit. And at the outset, so I'll start off kind of laying the groundwork, and we'll see, like I said, if any of the guys do pop in. I know that Bobby is indisposed for a little bit, and we'll see if he pops in a little bit later as well. But we'll kind of play it by ear as we go along. Now, one of the things that I mentioned when I talked about the Hobbypalooza thing last time. So what we're going to do is we got to kind of think through it a little bit. Now that they finally fleshed it out a little bit as well, I can tell you. So what I'll do first is I'll quickly go through the lineup for those of you who haven't gotten a chance to check out the latest updates on it. And we'll talk through it a little bit here. And then we'll go into a couple of things that I was thinking about in relation to it. And that's why I kind of wanted to see if I could get a couple of them to chime in a little bit, because I wanted to get some other opinions, and I'll be glad to get some opinions from you guys as well. So there's your schedule. It has been updated a little bit. There's a little more information to it now, because it's been fleshed out. So they're starting off. So they did a kickoff thing already. Then Saturday. So this is 10 a.m. CST. So 11 a.m. in the East. So EST for me. So basically I'm adding an hour to all of these. So good evening, Jimas. So you've got Hobby Hotline starting the thing off. Personal Finance Dad. She blinded me with your fractors. Like I said, I've seen a lot of these channels you may be familiar with. Up North Collectors. They do pack openings, so you can see opening 50 plus pack of cards. They're also starting to insert some information about kind of what they're going to talk about. So you got Sports Card Live. Jeremy's doing his thing at 3 p.m. Eastern. Diamond Yard Sports Cards. I'm familiar with his stuff. He does a lot more vintage, so, and it does give a little bit of a breakdown here. Ray from Philly as well, talking a little bit more vintage. Breaker Culture. So Ziggy is there at 7 o'clock in the East. Bowman 53, so a little bit more vintage. So you do get kind of a vintage block here, and then back to vintage over here. And then you've got Bob Lewis, who you may be familiar with if you've been around here before, along with Stoth. They're doing their cardboard podcast, so 9 p.m. Eastern. I'll probably be around checking that out. Michael will be there as well. And then you've got the after party for day one. So there's your Saturday schedule. Sunday, you're starting off with Pepino Man right off the top. I would say probably not safe for work. We'll see what he ends up doing. So Victor is going to be talking about rookie cards and things like that. I think he's going to be doing, I think later tonight, he's even going to try a little test live stream. So we'll see how that goes off, but he's going to be there around noontime on Sunday. Card Cutter, behind the numbers. I'm not too familiar with this one here. You got Baseball Collector, Ranger Steers 4-leaf cards. I did actually check out some of his stuff. He is more of a vintage guy as well. Breakout Cards, the young guy there. You've got still got a surprise at 6 p.m. Eastern. Sports Card Nation Special Edition, Breaker Culture, Filmington there at 9 o'clock in the East, and then wrapping up 10 p.m. in the East. So basically 2 days of content. There are a bunch of giveaways all the way throughout, and that's kind of the program and the way they've set it up. So that's kind of the very basics of what you need to know as far as what that is. And you can kind of, nobody really has to sit there and watch all the hours of content, but you can kind of pick and choose your favorites if you're familiar with it. Now, one of the things that I thought was kind of interesting, and this is where I'm going to see, I'll see if I can send a message, because I wanted to kind of get a contrasting opinion. My thought process, and when we talked about Hobbypalooza before, and I've said before that my opinion on Hobbypalooza really comes down to, it has a great amount of potential because you can draw a lot of eyeballs, and I think it still will. But it was one of those things where originally it was kind of pitched as almost this community idea, kind of in lieu of the national. Obviously, this year we're going to have the national. But you have this kind of community opportunity to be able to showcase some channels. But if you notice, when I went through that list, there's a bunch of channels who are already pretty well known, or at least have a pretty decent subscriber base as it is. So you're not really getting to see too many channels that are kind of newer or a little bit smaller. You've got Bob and Stove, and they're doing their thing a little bit. So there's a little bit of it sprinkled in there, but it does feel like it is a lot more. There are certainly more established channels there, and ones that already kind of have a built-in user base that could just start a live stream anytime and they'd probably do all right on their own. But obviously it'll be magnified with kind of the Hobbypalooza branding, the website. And if you want to know how to follow it, because it's going to be on a bunch of different channels during that scheduling, the website, thehobbypalooza.com, will actually let you click on links and you can go through it depending on the scheduling. And usually they'll kind of hand off to each other, and then you can click on the next link and it'll let you see the next live stream. And it just goes on through the rest of the day for both days. And then all that stuff gets archived as well. So that's kind of how that kind of thing plays out. But the thing that I thought was kind of interesting is when you started looking through that lineup, is like, yeah, I know all those names. Doesn't feel like there's a lot of new blood in there. It feels like it's a lot of the same, which is kind of interesting. So it doesn't feel like, so it feels like it is a little bit less, giving exposure to kind of expanding out the size of the community. It feels like there is a lot of the sameness. So if you're familiar with them, you're probably familiar with several of them already, or you probably watched them already. So I'm not sure if it's exposing too many of them to a new audience. Now, anybody, I don't know if any of you guys watched any of the Hobbypalooza stuff before. So is it somewhat new to you, or were you already familiar with it from last time around? This is just kind of an open question I leave for the chat. So while you're doing that, I'm going to quickly just type out a quick message here. See, it's kind of quiet when nobody else is talking and when the chat's kind of silent. I want to hear if there's keyboards off in the distance typing away. But if not, I can go on a little bit to talk about the old thing here. Okay, so it's new to you, Jeff. Sounds good. Now, let me ask a second question. So let me ask 2 questions. If it is new to you or it's not new to you, so that's the first question. Second question is, does any of the description I gave you, does any of that kind of seem interesting to you? Is that something you'd want, or is that a little bit of hobby content overload over 2 days? Is that something where you tune in a little bit here and there, maybe check out the ones you already know of? Would you check out some of the ones maybe you're not familiar with? So I'm kind of curious. I'm kind of want to gauge a little bit from you guys. If it's as interesting to you this time around, now that there was that big surge of content for a while. It's a little bit quieter right now, but then you're going to have all these live streams back to back to back. Is that something that you would want to have on in the background, or something you would even want to tune into? So just while you're doing that, I'll finish off that message. There we go. And done. So yeah. So we'll leave that kind of one a little bit open there for you guys. Now, my big thing with the Hobbypalooza thing, like I mentioned, is that I think the potential was there. I do feel like it has become a little bit, just from my opinion of it, because like I said, I am familiar with a lot of these. Breakout Cards is a younger guy, so at least that's a little bit new. But Sports Card Nation, that's Newman. First name escapes me, but Newman. I've listened to his podcast before. Breaker Culture, obviously. You're going to have your Bench Clear Media stuff with it. So you got to have that. That's going to be part of it for sure. So let me quickly see here. So Andy, if you're good, just nod your head. Sounds good. Good evening. How are you?
Good. I'm doing good. How are you guys?
It's going all right. I was kind of having a little bit of fun because I knew that Bobby was indisposed for first a little bit, but he'll probably pop around when he gets a chance. But I was like, let me see how a lot of people are kind of content to sit in the chat, kind of watching passively. It's like, no, you're going to have to participate. I can talk to myself. I'm pretty good at it, but it works a little better if it's a two-way conversation.
Absolutely. I did hear your preamble with the Hobbypalooza, and I thought that was really good.
Yeah, I wanted to break it down a little bit. I was actually having a little bit of fun because I know Amish Dave Archer is a very passionate proponent of it, and I was like, Dave, this is your segment. I'll start off the top with it. I wanted to give him his chance to give his 2 cents. It's like crickets from over in Ely, Minnesota. It's like, Dave, this was it. This was your moment.
He'll be in. Amish Dave will be in. I know he will.
Yeah, but I'll quickly throw a couple of things at you guys. It's
Sure.
a little bit easier when I'm just not just talking to myself. When I should just do it to a double window and then talk to myself officially. That'd be kind of fun. I'll do a second camera angle one of these days. The thing was, part of the reason I wanted to have Dave on it is because Dave is, Dave's not the biggest fan of this, so it is it's kind of fun hearing the contrasting viewpoint, because you're going to get a very different viewpoint, and then you can kind of play off that.
Sure.
But my thought is there was an opportunity missed here a little bit, because there's a lot of repeat folks from last time, which is all well and good. It means you do have some established channels, which is cool. But if you've got so many established channels, it's like, well, then it's not really a showcase anymore. It literally goes opposite of the showcase. It's just like, okay, well, it's just kind of like, yeah, let's get some boxes. We'll give them away. It's like, guys, how's that different from any other corporately sponsored thing? It doesn't feel organic anymore. It's kind of like, it's like you sold out, which, by the way, I've been very clear. I'm more than happy to sell out.
No issue with that at all.
Yes, I will shamelessly sell out within a fraction of a second. But it's like, but then you can't play the community side of it and sell out simultaneously. It does have a little bit of that feel. It's like, okay, I'm still going to watch the ones that I'm interested in, the creators that I like, because I'll support them. But I'm not going to sit there and watch a bunch of that. That's too much damn time out of my Saturday.
You may see a sneak guest that you might be interested in getting one of those. You never know what happens.
Well, traditionally that's how you do it, because each one of them get to pick how they want to do their live stream. They get to program it in whatever way they wish. Because I know that Mike O in the past did, I believe it was last time, or maybe the one before that, he did the thing where he invited a bunch of folks. And then they did all 10. I think they were able to fit 10 on the screen. And it was this big, it was just like, here's the link. Whoever wants to come on can come on. And it was just like this big group chat of 10 people kind of talking simultaneously. It was it was interesting. We'll call it interesting.
Yeah, the only thing, I think that would be cool. In fact, I actually was thinking, when I see like Brad and Dustin do it, and then Ziggy will have like an open mic thing. I like that. I really do. It's just that you have to have a good moderator, or you kind of lose control quick.
Well, the thing that I was thinking about is that I was confident that someone would do it. Nice.
That's my son.
Yeah, I was very confident that someone was going to do that, or at least a couple people probably, if I'm being completely honest. But what I thought was very interesting is that the more people you put on the screen, you only have so much real estate, so much airtime, and you only got an hour. So it is actually a bit of a problem, is that it's like, guys, you only got 60 minutes. So the more people you stick on the screen, you actually run out of time. If you put 10 people on the screen, each one gets 6 minutes.
That's the whole thing. So you really have to be organized, and otherwise you kind of lose it, and then kind of gets counterproductive, I think, but it's possible.
It certainly is, but you will have to, to your point, you will have to control that time. You almost have to sit there with a stopwatch and go, look, man,
we're going to
time's up. Time's up.
Exactly.
Get to the point. Yeah, so Paul's heading out for a month. No, good luck with that, Paul. I know that you're out and about for work all the time. Quickly, I'll get caught up here. Check out the channels I know. Yep, that's fair. Where's Mike for Canadian Cars participating? Yeah, I think Mike's still content, just kind of doing his thing. I wouldn't be surprised though if he pops up in one of those like big group chats. Because I know Garrett. So Card Cutter is Garrett. So it wouldn't shock me. I don't know what Garrett has in mind. I haven't checked. I haven't asked. But if Mike showed up on that one, it wouldn't shock me. They could sit there and just talk wrestling for an hour.
I feel like I know a lot of these guys from looking at from my last video I did. Hi Paul, thank you. Card Cutter and Miko and Ed and all those guys. So I know a lot of those guys are going to be participating. Pepito Man, super. That guy is terrific. We had a nice conversation. But yeah, a lot of those guys I feel like I know, and it's gonna be fun. I'm gonna check it out for sure.
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of those things. I think a lot of it will depend on if Pepino Man starts day drinking. That could be a very, very interesting start to the day.
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting anything. I joked I was with Dave and Steve on their podcast on Tuesday, and my statement was, I literally went through the lineup. They've fleshed it out a little bit more, so that's why I went through it again quickly here. But when I got to Pepino Man, I just said, not safe for work. I don't care if it's on the weekend. It's still not safe for work. Even if your work computer's within 500 feet of it, it's still not safe for work.
Plus, he's in California, so what time does he go on?
Well, it's going to be, I think it's 2 hours earlier than that, so it's got to be like 8 a.m. his time.
Ooh, okay.
I believe I think
maybe
so.
7 if it's 10 o'clock.
Yeah. I think they did CST, so that's
Okay,
what kind of threw
Central.
me off
Earlier,
initially. So
okay.
I think it's 2 hours, but then still 8 a.m. that's super early for him. So
Yeah.
hey, I'm impressed by your commitment. I don't know why. Maybe you wanted the rest of the day to yourself.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
He's
I'd say,
probably an early riser. He's probably good for it.
well, then I'm doubly worried about the day drinking.
It could be the middle of the day. Who knows?
It's like I'll just start drinking the night before and just continue forward.
Exactly.
Start really early. As I said, like that could be very interesting, or it could be a marvelous train wreck just to get the festivities underway. So we'll see what happens with that one. So that people can look forward to that on Sunday and then go to church to repent. So maybe in that order. I leave it open to what happens beyond that. I have no idea. But no, the biggest reason why I wanted to start with that was, like I said, I wanted to give Dave his chance. We'll see if he pops in later. I can give him his chance to have
Sure.
to give some love. He gave his love letter to Hobbypalooza because he loves it so much. But part of the reason I want to touch on it, and it's something that I invited you, and I also reached out to Jordan. So we'll see if he pops in as well.
I think he should be in the waiting room maybe, or he should be here
Not
soon.
yet. I can see not yet.
There you go.
But if he does pop in, I'll kind of play into it. But the angle that I wanted to do, so I wanted to start off with Hobbypalooza a little bit, but the direction that I wanted to take it, and you guys are actually very good for this kind of follow-up piece. Originally, the idea was to give exposure to these channels. It was to create this the community concept and also expose people, because some people watch some of these guys but then aren't familiar with the other ones. It was a way of being like, hey, I watch this guy, if you like my stuff, check out so-and-so. And you kind of hand off the baton, so to speak, throughout the days. And that was kind of the way you played it out. So it worked pretty well in that sense. See, good timing. So Jordan, nod your head if you're good. Sounds good.
I'm good.
Good evening. How's it going?
Pretty good. How are you guys?
Good, man.
Going well, going well. So perfect timing on your part. So what I wanted to touch on is you guys, different concept, but as you guys have been building your channels. So Andy's been building his channel and doing things his way. You've kind of come back into the game now. You're starting to do your new series, doing your picks and stuff. So there's more than one way to skin a cat, as far as promoting your channel, as far as getting it out there, so this was one avenue that some folks can take, because you can use the live stream to be like, if you don't know me, maybe this is your opportunity to kind of get to know me a little bit in this format. And if you like what you see, hey, subscribe to the channel, stick around, because you're doing it on your own channel. So if people like what you're doing, hey, the subscribe button's right there. So you don't have to go very far. So from an exposure perspective, it is an opportunity. That's why I said I'm a little disappointed that there's so many already established channels. The benefit may not be as good as it would be if you had a couple more of the smaller ones in there. That's where maybe some of those multiple person panels might be useful, because if somebody comes in and contributes something interesting, maybe there's still an opportunity for somebody to get a little bump from that. And I always thought that was an opportunity, because it's like, you're already a big channel. You don't really need help. That'd be like bringing a sports card investor in with, another, Packer Card 87 who has like 70,000 subscribers. Let's just grab a bunch of people that already have 50, 60,000 subscribers or more. And it's like, you guys don't need any help. You already have plenty of subscribers. You can go run your own live stream anytime you want, and you get plenty of people watching.
Yeah.
But you guys, when as you've been building up your stuff, one of the things is that there's been, like, if you go to Andy's Instagram for Sports Card Investigator, you can check out, there's the inner circle. So you got Jordan, you got Stacking Slabs, you got Brett, who isn't really in the YouTube side of things, but he's been doing his thing on the podcast, and that's been going well. I do listen to those podcasts. But one of the things I was kind of curious about, and this is just a question for me, obviously you guys have had the chance, you've conversed in the past. I've been surprised that there hasn't been as much cross-pollination. Because one of those things is Brett has kind of built it up, and he's been around. Brett's been around, popping in here and there in a lot of these different places. And you guys have been kind of building your own things separately. Was there any thought at all to kind of combine forces at any point, kind of to like, the rising tide lifts all boats?
No, never. I would hate to be involved in an episode of Sports Card Investigator, especially a guy that doesn't want to go to the national and would tell other people,
and still doesn't want to. He doubled down. He doubled down pretty hard on that second one.
Yeah, I don't want to be associated with just a terrible person like that. So no, I'm gonna.
I don't mind being associated with terrible people. That's kind of how I roll around here.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. Anyone that would have me in a club, I don't want to be a member of. So
Nice.
I
And that's despite him trying to give you a little tribute to Baby Yoda in the background. Like, what the heck, man?
that's it.
Like,
That's it.
like there's a little, you know, a little
I see
touch
it.
there, a little snuck there right in the back. Don't think I miss it. I catch my details. It's part of what I do.
All kidding aside, Jordan, Chris, Sports Card PT, he's kind of involved
Sport
in a
Card
lot
PT,
of work
that's another
stuff.
one. That's right.
And I talk to Brett all the time. I talk to Jordan multiple times a day. In fact, Jordan just came on and we did an episode together that's probably going to be out in the next 3 or 4 days that I'm real excited about.
Perfect timing that I brought it up then.
Yeah. And it's just trying to get into the groove and just try to establish stuff. But just if we do it, we want to make sure we do it and it's just not the same stuff. We just want to make sure that we do something that guys will want to see. And I think this next episode, I'll give you a little preview, is I get into a lot of the research and talking to, like the NBA. I have a lot of friends that are scouts and people involved, and I do a lot of research. Jordan, his specialty is the analytics. So we kind of combine those two together and talk about a couple players. In fact, one specifically that we break down, and it kind of is kind of new. It's kind of something that I don't think people are really doing, and it kind of gives a real inside look to the kind of thing that we look at when we target and look at players. But that's just the whole thing. We've talked, Jordan. You could say, I mean, we talked about collaborating for over a year, like getting something just the right time,
Yeah, and if you want to know the origin story behind the inner circle, it's actually pretty ironic. Brad, the comeback card investor, comeback card investor. He got me, Andy, Chris, Sports Card PT, and he asked Brett, Stacking Slabs, to come in and do kind of like a around the table ESPN type thing, except with cards, where he was a moderator. And we did a couple of episodes with him, and we got to know each other. And I guess we saw our channels and brands going a different direction than the comeback card investor. So we decided to kind of break off, work on our own thing, and now we're the inner circle. We talk all the time. So thank you, Brad.
Yeah, actually, he was the catalyst that brought us all together, and especially with COVID and everything else, I think there's not literally a day that goes by that we're not talking about cards or content or life in general. So it was kind of a blessing. It really was.
No, that's fair, and I definitely haven't heard that part before. I just wanted to let Jordan, say it. I cannot say it. That would be out of school. That would be inappropriate. But no, it's still good to know. But the reason I posed the question was, like I said, originally Hobbypalooza was kind of designed as kind of a community thing. It was an opportunity to expose some of those channels, and I feel like the first couple of iterations did that a little bit better. So quickly, I'll acknowledge a couple of comments. Good evening, Ozzy Card Dad. Good evening, Rich G. And yes, it is morning for you. That's true. You are coming to us from the future. I don't know if you caught last week. I actually got some not Aussie rules, but Aussie rugby cards as toss-ins because I did actually buy a card from Australia. So that'll be in the pickup video that'll appear tomorrow. To the point that usually toss-ins, I don't even bother looking at them. But then I was like, wait a minute, what is this? I started flipping through. I'm like, oh, okay, these are actually pretty sweet. It's like, all right, I'm keeping these.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's like usually the toss-ins go straight to the garbage can. Sorry, kids, you straight to the garbage can. But I was like, no, I'm keeping this stuff. This is kind of interesting.
That's neat.
Yeah, so I was like, all right. I started looking into it. It's like I didn't realize they had regular rugby as well. I shouldn't be surprised, but I was like, I kind of like Aussie rules a little bit better than regular rugby personally. It's actually a fun sport to watch, and you can pick it up in a minute. It's actually pretty quick to follow, and high scoring, which is actually fun to watch. But the reason why I wanted to pose the question to you that way is that you guys did strategically, once you did get together and start chatting and talking, you did strategically decide to kind of build your own independent, brand, so to speak. And that's why I was kind of curious this far on if the thought had crossed your mind. Obviously, the collaboration coming up, and out of the. It was easier. It's easier to see. Like I knew because I pay attention to stuff like that. I could see it on there. It's not like he hit it. It's in the bio of Instagram. But if you weren't paying attention, you would be like, stacking slabs. What's because Brett is kind of off doing his own kind of thing. He's got his own little subcategory, and then he shows up and pops into these different places, and it wouldn't like you wouldn't put two to two together unless you happen to know.
Yeah, Brett was when I first started doing this. Brett actually was one of the first people to reach out, and then I did his show. And since then, you know, sometimes you click with people and sometimes you don't. And that's, you know, that's, but with him, I kind of did, and we just stuck together and not stuck together, but just became friends outside of, you know, the podcast. And that was just one of those things where I do notice when people, you know, reach out and say, hey, you know, I know you're new to this or whatever. And, you know, if I can help you out, and that means a lot to me.
Absolutely. Now, there is something to be said about, at the end of the day, the collaboration is so stuff like that is one avenue. Collaboration is another avenue because that's a normal one you see. You mentioned Comeback Card Investor. The idea was collaborating. Because why? Because then when you collaborate, you gain a couple of different things, potentially, theoretically. One is you can expose yourself to a new audience. That's how that part works. Another way is you can, you know, potentially, maybe you can find a little bit of collaboration to it. Maybe there is a little bit of synergy where, like, hey, maybe we could share some best practices or whatever, and in turn help each other, and you boost each other because there's a handful of people that know me that don't know you. So maybe they say, oh, this person's cool, and they go and check out the channel, or vice versa. And that's one way it goes. The other way is it can go is that you can also use it a bit as a bit of a shortcut. And that's kind of what you're referring to, where maybe you do collaborate, you do take advantage of what it does for you, but then you're not really adding value per se. So that's one. It can be kind of a shortcut, but sometimes you can provide some value to it. The other thing, though, as well, is there is something to be said for growing it organically. Being like, okay, like I'm still talking to these folks, I'm still associating with these folks, but we're gonna build it up independently, kind of all get to a certain point, and it's like, okay, now we'll start doing a little bit more together, where maybe people didn't realize it until, oh wait, you guys have been talking all along. Oh, that's kind of interesting.
That's fair.
I think, you know, how people were upset about the national thing and how they were talking about the relationships and how they like to build relationships in the card community. And that's something I've, you know, built over the past year, just joining YouTube. I've had Chris, House of Jordans, Josh, Cardboard Chronicles, and met all these people. And even though I've only collaborated with them once, I still talk to them often, and we bounce ideas off of each other. So that community thing goes beyond just the national. Like we all feel it, and it's something we're growing. I know Andy hasn't had too many people on his show, but hopefully he has
all those collaborations that could have happened at the national, if only all those collab opportunities.
Right.
Single tier.
There will be opportunity.
I believe it. Well, I think there's an opportunity not in the not too distant future for you and Ed to have like a food off. I think that could be a thing.
Ed commented, and I wanted next time there's a local show, and I'd love to meet him. But I said we should do a live stream, and you know, with the pizza, we should both have pieces of pizza and compare the two. That was the funniest part of the whole. I never would have known that, but that was just something that, you know, when for every, you know, people who don't know, Ed commented on the channel, and you know, he's basically, you know, I never saw Andy at any of the shows, and then I was joking around like if he was looking for me, he's going to be looking for me now. And then, by the way, Charlie's Pizza is overrated, and I was joking like that's where we draw the line, you know, when someone goes about, you know, talking about someone else's pizza. So he commented. So I said maybe we'll have to do a pizza tasting show. I think that'd be fun.
Oh, exactly. But that's the thing is that you know, as a natural born troll, I enjoy pushing buttons at all times. But it's like I'm not messing with people's pizza joint. I don't even like pizza, and I'm still not messing with their pizza joint. It's like their wars started over less.
Yeah, there's some battles you just don't want to fight.
It's like I'm not. It's like, guys, I got my limits. And you know where it is? Pizza joints. I'm not even touching that with a 50-foot pole. It's like I will mock your religion. I will mock everything else, your political affiliation. But pizza, I'm leaving that alone. I know better. Staying out of that one. Completely staying out of that one.
Yeah.
Well, Andy actually eats. Andy eats a pineapple pizza, so I wouldn't really take his word for it.
Goodness.
No.
See, like I said, World War III will begin over a pizza discussion. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, no, that's true. It's no pineapple on the pizza.
Yeah. No, you're right, Aussie Card Dad. I do have to ask you. I got to get some tips on the Aussie rules. I got to get in on that side of it. Getting the cards is going to be a little tricky, though. I did the seller was actually really good, and those toss-ins were awesome. It was kind of fun for me to get educated, and there were new ones. I was actually very impressed because it's not like the Kabooms, but they had like an animated graphic version of it, like an acetate animated card with one of the players. I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. I have no idea what this is. I had to go look into it. I was like, okay, that's kind of neat. Yeah, Andy fits in cards and food. That's right.
That's it.
But no, that's fair. Let me ask you this, actually. So we'll kind of transition from it to it, and then we'll play a little bit into the alt discussion. But let me first transition over to this. So as you go along now, as you start doing it, and I know that Jordan's starting to put some stuff together, working on some new series and things like that, and then Andy, you're starting to work on it, branching out and working into some of these other areas. So if you kind of have your way, what is it you would like to see done as far as growing the channel along? Are you kind of comfortable where it is? Would you like to see it get a little bit bigger? Because it's a bigger stage and a bigger megaphone. So what is it you would like, ideally?
Good, Jordan.
For me, well, first of all, I'm meeting up with or Breakout Cards reached out to me. I don't know if people watching know Breakout Cards. He reached out to me. He's a data analyst as well, and we're talking about starting a podcast of our own. We're two data analysts, kind of, dive into a player, mostly baseball, because his expertise is baseball. So we're working on that. We're working on the name, and there should be some announcements soon. So look out for that. If you're not subscribed to him, go ahead and subscribe to Breakout Cards. But I guess with my channel, my overall goal when I started it was just to help people. And I don't really care too much about subscriber count. I made it so I can use what I know from my career, and because I know not everyone's in the data career, and I can use that to show people the things that I look at, and maybe they can learn from my perspective and apply that perspective to other players that I'm not talking about, and help them grow in the hobby. Because a year ago, there were so many new people coming in, new YouTubers and new people in cards. So my goal was just to help people. If I get 1,000 subscribers and I get $5 a month off YouTube, cool. But I really, if I help the hobby grow, then I'm probably going to make money from the cards I have more than I would YouTube.
Mm-hmm. I think that's fair. The only reason I brought up the question, and then I'll touch on kind of the same thing with you, Andy, sure, is the reason I brought up the question is it's this weird balancing act. The reason why I thought it would be interesting to talk to you guys is that you're at your stage of building up your channel to a certain degree. I didn't start doing sports card content on my channel until 2018, the end of 2018, so around that time period. And I had done reasonably well with videos I was doing back then for the Blu-ray stuff. Mm-hmm. And my biggest watched videos are Blu-ray. That's why whenever I want to make fun of one of these other guys, it's like, oh yeah, go watch this Blu-ray video. It's like, why does it have 1.25 million views? Exactly my point. That YouTube is weird. That is the way these things happen. But the point is that, and it couldn't be a sillier video. That's what makes me laugh about it. But the thing is that, and I've made what I feel are much better quality videos that don't have a fraction of a percent of the views. It's like, this is 100 times better, guys. It's a better video, objectively a better video. Mm-hmm. But that's not the way this works. That's just not. But as you go and you try to build it up, some people don't try too hard, which is understandable. But at the same time, you're doing this weird balancing act where you're like, oh, well, it's almost like being an indie band. That's the analogy I use. It's almost like being this indie band where some people are like, oh, I don't want it to get too big. It's like, well, yeah, but then that means almost nobody's going to hear it. So do you want the music to be heard? Because there is a balancing act. Once it gets to a certain point, it's hard to play all the songs you want to play. You don't quite have the same control because to a certain point, your audience expects certain things from you once the audience gets bigger. But then on the other hand, more people will hear it, more hear the song, so to speak, if you're following my metaphor. Mm-hmm. So it's like this weird balancing act where a lot of folks do almost want to they almost want to have the megaphone. They want to have the big platform, play the big festivals, but then be able to keep the independent spirit of, well, I really just want to play the music I want to play. And it's kind of hard to balance the two.
You say that, but if, like, let's say the megaphone was offered to me and Andy, and we said no, we don't want that. Somebody's going to get it, and I trust myself and my card knowledge. I trust Andy's card knowledge. So I would rather us have the megaphone and people hear us than some other person who might get it and they're just trying to sell picks and make a quick buck off of their influence. So if I had 100,000 subscribers tomorrow, I would take it and I would do my best to be responsible with it.
Mm-hmm. No, it's fair. But the reason I posed the question, the reason why I said there's that balancing act. What if the path to doing that is 500 collaborations, whether it makes sense or not? So let's do a collaboration, because there is it's not perfect, but I could, if the goal is just to expand your audience, it's like, guys, this isn't that difficult. Mm-hmm. Figure out a way to get Sports Card Investor to put you on his channel. Mm-hmm. You may not enjoy it, but guess what? You'll get attention. You'll probably bump up subscribers. More people will watch your stuff. It's like, you talk about Comeback Card Investor? Get on there with him and Personal Finance Dad. No, but you get my point. Mm-hmm. Right. That's why that analogy was not an accident. The question is, if you're not 100% comfortable with the traditional videos that this collaboration entails, because you are associating. When you're doing a collaboration, you're surrounding yourself with what it is. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm in constant danger. I'm associated with Andy. Like, he's been on here twice now. Like, I'm done. This is over. I am canceled. It's done. It's finished. But that's what you're doing, though. You are putting it's like, and I have Bobby Burrell on here all the time. So like I said, double canceled, like triple canceled. I cannot be more canceled. But that's a risk I've taken. So be it. And for goodness sake, I put my name and my face on the logo. It's like, there's clearly no end to my arrogance that I don't care. I'll deal with all of it. But those are the decisions you make, because you are the company you keep. Right. It's an old saying, but it is still true. You are the company you keep. So the question is, what price? It is nice to have that megaphone, but if you knew the most clear path, because that is the clearest path, the most direct line from point A to point B is those collaborations. Mm-hmm. So there are some collaborations where you will be more comfortable. It'll probably be a better fit for you, but it's like, and it will help, but it'll help incrementally. It'll be this kind of like slow and steady build up. The other one is put the rocket fuel in and hit the rocket and go straight up. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden you wake up and there's a bunch of people listening to you. You could give your message. How'd you get there? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think we kind of made that decision on early on with the Comeback Card Investor. When we were doing videos with him, he had 400 subscribers, and we saw the direction he was headed with his content, and we just didn't agree with it. So we wanted to do our own thing. So if I knew that he was going to have, I don't know where he's at right now, 20,000 subscribers, something like that. Mm-hmm. If I knew in the past if he was going to have 20,000 subscribers, and if I stayed with him, I'd probably have 20,000 subscribers. I wouldn't do anything differently. So you got to look at it that way.
I just wanted to pose the question. So Andy, so we got two pieces here. Mm-hmm. Same question about what. So first, ideally, what would you like? What would be your preference first? And then kind of playing into what we're talking about. Where's your comfort level on stuff like the collaborations? So kind of what are your goals, and what do you understand about how to play the collaboration thing, or what your preferences are?
I just have to laugh. Aussie Card Dad just said something really funny. So, but
he's not wrong. It's the obvious, and it's wrong. It's the truly correct thing to do. And honestly, when that happens, it'll be like the Spider-Man meme. We'll just be pointing at each other. I'll have my backwards hat. He will be horrifically. He'll be like the dollar store one, because I'll have the fitted cap, and he'll have the the little. It's not even a snapback. Apparently, Bobby was informing me. It's like he needs to elevate to get to the snapback, so that I can make fun of the snapback properly, right, and then get all the way up to the fitted hat. But get on my level, Daps man. Get on my level, bro.
For me, when I started this, and I'm not going to bore everybody with the history of it, because I say it every time, is I just wanted to do something different. My background is different than a lot of people. I have an education background, and I just didn't see a lot of people that were like coming at content and cards from an educational viewpoint. How do I do this? How do I do that? How do I do research? How do I prepare cards? That kind of thing. And I thought if I could somehow build an archive or a library of things where people could go on my channel and say, hey, I'm going to start to go on eBay. How do I do that? Well, you can go on the channel and say, okay, here's how you do the eBay stuff, or how do you, whatever it is. And I just try to do is to be as honest as I can.
Mm-hmm.
And I just try to tell the truth. I love to start. Well, this is Filmington. I love Filmington's channel, by the way, and he's and I love to.
I just wanted to take a second, really quick, Andy, and I want to continue the direction you were going, but I want to say we got all the all stars. It's like subtle like a sledgehammer to the face, and I appreciate it. And that's one of my favorite phrases: subtle like a sledgehammer to the face.
That's how it is, and I do, and look,
and good evening, Filmington. Thanks for popping in.
And I do push people's buttons, and I get it, and it's, I think that debate and healthy debate is fine, and that's the whole thing. Is I just try to be honest with my content, and every one of these guys that I met inadvertently over that last video, because I saw all their videos, and Filmington was one, and Mike Baseball Collector, and Ed, and Jason,
unintentionally, without collaborating with anyone directly. You indirectly got a baseball collector collaboration.
I really did, which was kind of cool, and I learned so much from that video,
right? Because
of what happened, right? Yeah. And then I looked at it, and I took all their comments and everything else, and I thought it was great. And I all these guys are there's so much education, there's so much knowledge, there's so much history that these guys have. There's one guy on there. I can't think of his. I think it was Rick. He does. Let's say it's oddball.
Vintage oddball cards.
Oh my god, that was. I was on that station. That was so fascinating. MP Fox does stuff with his kid. It's great stuff, and none of it would have happened if what didn't happen happened. If that makes sense, because it opened my eyes to a lot of things, and that's all I want to do with my channel. Is just try to do the best I can. And I'm a one-trick pony. If anyone wants to know about, rookies, first it's redundant. First year rookie cards and because that's what I love to do. I have I know, but I'm going to. I know exactly where it is, and I'm going to do that. I'm hopefully right now, and you guys will be the first to know.
And good evening, 357. Thanks for popping in.
Yeah. But that's just the thing, is there's so much information, and I just if I can share what I know and learn from other people, and they can take anything, if one person gets something out of what I say, that's terrific. I'll have a professional NBA scout to talk about the draft coming up. I have personal friends with this person, so he's going to come on and talk about the draft picks, things like that I can offer, and that's all I can do. And I go on once a week or once every other week, and I put my best foot forward, and I try to put information out there, and that's all I can do. I mean, I have my dedicated trolls, and that's fine. It comes to the territory.
No, sounds good. Good.
Can I comment on the people that Andy met over the comments in that last video? There's one guy named Rivenwood that he mentioned,
yes.
And I'm not sure if people checked him out, but he has about 50 subscribers, and he doesn't have many days left due to his health, and all he has really is him. It's just him and his cards, and that's all he talks about is his cards. And if anyone watching this, go check out Rivenwood. Or just look up Rivenwood sports cards, something like that, and just watch his channel and leave him a positive comment or something. That's a guy who really should be on something like Hobbypalooza. Just tell his story. In his last days. That's one guy I really felt when I looked up the people that Andy put in that video.
Mm-hmm. No, and I think you're making a queer. I'm going to get to a couple of these comments, but I think you're making a very good point. And Andy touched on it with his response video, where he once again explained to you all that you should not go to the national. Don't listen to the thumbnail. He's just denouncing the national. It's more national slander is what it is. Just minutes and minutes of national slander. But anyway, inside of the national slander video, what happens though is that he does, his tact is to focus on the individual And then he went in and looked at, as he mentioned, he went to the channels. He went and like, let's see it from your perspective. Let's see where you're coming from and get a little bit of, and Jordan's comment about Rivenwood is Rivenwood posts, usually I've seen him around in different comment sections. I haven't watched too many of his videos, but I am familiar with the name because I've seen him in the comments. And he's a bit of a grumpy guy sometimes with his comments, but he's entitled to his opinions. But the thing is, sometimes you don't know why. Sometimes there's a reason why people do things the way they do. And that's kind of where I like to have a little bit of fun. I have the luxury of doing a live stream that's multi-hours. If the people that are here regularly and are watching, it's like, you're going to get a taste of my sense of humor. It can be dark. It's a little snarky. I don't take too many things seriously. I don't take most of life seriously. That's not my way. But I can then, in the middle of a ridiculous conversation about nonsense and nothing, then suddenly flip the switch and it's like, all right, let's talk completely seriously about this thing. In the next 25 minutes, we're going to talk about that. I had a gentleman here, Natan, who was talking about research on a very specific mid-1950s hockey set.
Yep.
Most people are like, what the heck is this?
I know.
But a bunch of people after were like, okay, well, that was really interesting. It's like, and he went and completely reconstructed this. Like, it's like effort, years and years. And the guy's been collecting this stuff for 15 years. He could not be more passionate about it. But for that time period, that's why I took it out. I cut it into a cohesive thing, and people could watch that video later on. And they could enjoy it. If they're interested, great. If you're not interested, no problem. We had plenty of other stuff we talked about during that live stream. It wasn't just one thing, but it was something you're not going to get in a lot of other areas, because it's like, normally that's death. Try doing an educational piece for 50 minutes in the middle of the live stream and see what happens.
Yeah.
People stuck around and watched.
It's what I do. I mean, that's the whole thing, was when the video was met with that response, I had to know why. And I'm glad I did. And one of the things with Filmington just mentioned about Rivenwood, that he's been around, he's misunderstood. If you just go into his video and read his about, it's like the most heartbreaking, sweet thing, where he went into the Marine Corps and his mother thought that his cards were garbage because they looked like they were through some looked like they were through the bicycle spoke, and he had mantles. Some were. He had mantles and Yogi Berras and you name it. He's been searching for that box, for the last 60 years. So I just thought it was a sweet story, and he kind of hit me. And it was one of those things where if none of this would have happened, I never would have, looked into or met any of these guys through their videos. And it was the best thing that could have happened to me.
No, and that's completely fair. And I think it puts a human element to it. And thank you, Filmington, for filling in some of the blanks. I wasn't too familiar with his backstory as well, but it is good. It is good to know. That's why I say sometimes early on when I started doing the videos, I made it abundantly clear. Like, I could not have been more clear on this. You're getting a window into people. You're not getting you're not seeing 24 hours. You're not seeing how they converse with people out in the real world day to day. You're not seeing how they are at work. You're not seeing the conversations they have there. You're getting a taste of this little sliver, this thing that you're being shown. You're getting the one room. You get the one angle in the one room. It was so good. I told my son, I said, it was MP Fox, I think MC Fox. It reminded me of me and my son. And it was such such a cool production of what they do and how they went through stuff. And I'm looking at Rick. I want to touch on the comments, Andy. Give me 2 seconds. Let me get caught up, and I will get right to that comment.
Absolutely.
So quickly, 357. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Ozzy Card Dad says the more variety we have in combat content, the better. Couldn't agree more. Be it good, bad, or ugly. 100% agree. Josh, good evening. Thank you. So this was Filmington's comment about Rivenwood, giving us some background. Thank you again for that. And that's the thing. Like, I've been watching Filmington stuff for a while, but it's one of those things where it's down the road. Filmington would be one that I would love to have a conversation with, because now he is very much into the investment side of things.
Yep.
But I don't reject that out of hand. That's why I said Andy's here. That's why we don't reject that out of hand. I am predominantly a collector-centric channel, but I am interested and fascinated by the factors that play into it. That's why I can kind of straddle both lines. Like, I have to be able to play that world, because I'm still interested in it. I would have stuck with economics if it had been a thing where I just really hated calculus. Like, I can't be clear about this. I was in school for economics. The calculus thing was just a no-go for me. But aside from that, that doesn't mean that I don't sit there. The principles, I never had an issue with those. That's why I'm very comfortable. And when it comes to accounting and that side of things, that's easy for me. I did that in my sleep. So those concepts were not an issue. But I enjoy the concepts very much, and I can apply them to a lot of what's going on. I was doing supply and demand curves for days. Trust me. The concepts are not eluding me, and I still have on that bookshelf right there economic textbooks that are still sitting there. I've been there for almost 20 years. They're still there. Those are the original ones. I still have them. So I'm still in that world. Quickly, I'll get caught up here. So Josh here says, did I see Medano get a double eagle? Was he playing in a charity tournament or something? I'm really not sure. So here's Ken. Good evening, Ken. Wearing his Dale Earnhardt mesh snapback inside and backwards just for Carlos. Well, I appreciate the all love, Ken. You have every right to be wrong. Moving on. So Rick here, Vintage Oddball Cars, did join us as well.
I have to be honest with Rick. I don't know. I think Filmington's having a party at Lowe's. I'm conflicted now. I don't know.
There you go.
I am.
That's right. Yeah. Good stuff. Yeah, the guys chatting with each other. Awesome. So here you go. I was Black Sheep when I started making content, 2018. So, okay. Started around the same time as myself for the sports card side of things. Very few investor types. Very true. Even talking about selling cars was frowned upon somehow. I think it was that you did provide quality, though. I will say, I think part of it was that you had some quality. So what ended up happening is you kept going and going and going. And after a while, I think even the people who didn't want to accept it were like, well, he's not harmful. I think people forget that the investor thing plays into this ecosystem. That's why I didn't invent the phrase, but I tried to bring it into parlance. I go, there's the hobby, and then there's the hobby economy. They're two different things. You have to understand the hobby economy exists. Even for collectors, the hobby economy exists, and the hobby economy affects you. It does matter. Like you can't ignore it. You must understand.
I think it's so funny because I go by investigator. It's just a play on what I used to do. It is, but people see invest and they don't see gator, right? So
there's more letters.
I don't know, and I get all the time where he's the same as this, or I'm a grifter. I'm an old grifter going down, and I'm going to take everybody's money.
I'm really getting over the grifter thing.
I don't understand.
This is a really old word, guys. We buy a thesaurus and find a second word. At least switch between two.
It's if people watch my stuff, which and I talk to Jordan all the time. I am never going to be those guys that say buy this, buy that, buy this, buy that. But somehow I get like put into these, this, and it's fine. I guess if more people will watch whatever. But I that always boggles my mind is like what do they think just because they stopped it to Gator? It's invest, but that's where we stop.
That's too many letters. That's way too many letters. You need like a shortened version. Even Northeast Ohio Sports Cards, after enough people called him Neo, he just shrunk it to Neo. He rebranded. He goes, all right, I'm Neo now forever.
I can be FCI, but that might confuse people.
Exactly. Well, everything will confuse people. So here, I'm just following on to the contest here. I'm assuming since he's referencing a Friday in the future.
Well, because I said that I'm conflicted if I should take it. Maybe I could get a job in Chicago that weekend for some work, for consulting work. And Filmington, maybe we'll have to talk, but I'm new to this, and it's like they really hurt my feelings. I don't know. It's just I don't understand it.
Well, it's okay. It's very difficult being a sensitive soul in this world. I understand you. I get it. Moving on. So Ken is kind of outlining very well kind of the point. I think if you hang in there long enough, maybe this would be the way I present it to you. I think if you can provide some value, value over time, there will be people who won't like it, but eventually they'll just get tired. they'll just be like, okay, look, I can keep trying to troll this guy. He doesn't seem to really care, and that was kind of the way it works.
Right.
So I'd agree with that as well, and I'd agree with this as well. There are benefits.
There are benefits to that, Ken, for sure.
Yeah, that's always a joker. That's always a joke around the house where I go, like, you wound my feelings. My dad is like, yeah, like hitting a rhinoceros with a pellet gun.
Well, that was the funniest thing. And again, I'm talking too much. I get it. That's just me. Jordan knows that. He's like, oh, here he goes again. But when Mike Baseball Card Collector did that, the reaction video, I was like, oh my God! I was at a job in Massachusetts, and I couldn't watch it right away. And I think Jordan texted me and said, "Hey, I don't know what you did, but this guy did a video on you."
Yeah.
So I'm ready to like crawling under a rock. I'm like, oh, this is going to be horrific. Forget about
Meanwhile,
it.
I'd be thinking about the infinite content loop right at that moment. I'm like, my reaction to your reaction.
I
Let's
told
go.
my son, who does all the producing and he puts everything together for me, and he's like, this is the best thing that could have happened. And I'm like, well, I don't know about that, but it was just funny.
Yeah. Well, Andy, when you dropped that last video, you told me, this is it. I'm done. I'm done being angry.
That's it.
I'm done being angry. I'm done getting upset about people being angry with me.
I
like
agree.
you were done.
Can I get odds on this? Filmington, is there a way we can get? Is there a sports book we can do? Is there an angle that I haven't considered about how I can get some odds on this?
Every day he's sending me a new comment on that video where someone's trolling him, and he's like, I can't believe this guy said this, and I'm just like, I just send that shrug emoji, like, Andy, okay. Like,
the important thing, look, Jordan, let me tell you, the important thing. This is an important thing. This is how I operate my life. The important thing is, as long as Andy can get to the point where he accepts his lies, it's like he as long as he can come to full acceptance of his own lies and really buy it, we're good to go.
It's only a lie if you don't believe it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So quickly, for Aussie Card Dad, I know we touched on it a little bit. So at this point, do you have an official PC? I know you do some with your son.
Yeah, no, for sure. The cards that I buy and I use the dirty word, I invest in, they're all first year guys. It's usually targeting 2 or 3 or 4 guys per year, and they're gone, right? Mm-hmm. But there's some guys that my son and I really, really like. We like Steph Curry. Mm-hmm. We do that. Some of the Philadelphia stuff, we like Joel Embiid. He's got Russell Westbrook. We like. I
hear Ben Simmons is going to be real cheap real soon.
Ben Simmons, I'm ready. There's going to be a fire sale on our Ben Simmons collection. Right. And there's a guy that actually, I'll plug it. We're going to talk about it in the next video that I do PC because I liked him from the very beginning. Was this guy that basically crashed the hobby, Zion Williamson? And,
never heard of him.
So I do like him. RJ Barrett's one of the newer guys I like. RJ Hampton is a kid that I like. But there's mostly Philly stuff.
Sure.
That my son and I do, and his favorite player of all time is Steph Curry, so we do him too.
Not a terrible choice. Like, he's popular. Here's the thing: not a basketball guy, but I can respect somebody who's that good a shooter. Like, he's really transcendently good at that thing. That thing that he does, he's real good at it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Ken, if you had a dime for every person who doesn't like me or opinions, no, that's fair, Ken. It's like I'd be sitting on Fort Knox at this point. If I do my job right, I could be sitting on Fort Knox if I could ever get that deal agreed to. Yeah, Ben Simmons still isn't cheap there. Yeah, because I think isn't Ben Simmons have Australian citizenship, or was he born in Australia? I forget what the deal was.
He was born there, I believe.
Because the question was if he was going to play for the Australian team. So Jordan dropped off. It shows devices not connected, so he might have had a connection.
He was having some internet issues on it before, but I don't think Ben Simmons is really going to. It depends on where he goes. Everything that I'm seeing now and reading, he can't stay here. He just can't. I mean,
I think that's fair.
It makes the Carson Wentz situation look like a walk in the park. It's just.
I think though that's a case where you need to break up, like, for both of you. Like, it'd be better for everybody involved if he's no longer available. It would be better for Philadelphia. They can move on, and maybe it gives him a chance if he's willing to focus on the shooting, because that is really. He's not a bad player, but it's like shooting is kind of important. Going the opposite of the spectrum. Steph Curry kind of built his career and his legacy as he's pretty good at the shooting thing. It's kind of important. In that whole basketball thing. Again, not a big basketball expert, but when I was a kid, I played some basketball. Fat kid, super slow, but I could shoot. But I had a hoop in my house, and I shot 1,000 jump shots. And it's like I was actually a decent shooter. So the one time in a million that I get the freaking ball, I can probably hit a shot. Mm-hmm. So that kept me from being able. That allowed me to actually play once in a blue moon.
Right.
But it's like you better hit your shot though.
Yeah.
So it's like when you do get some playing time, you're not going to get a lot. But if you can make a couple of shots, well, then there's a chance you'll probably get to play again.
Yeah, my son is about 6 feet, and he played all through high school. He was a manager at Temple basketball. Now he's a basketball coordinator and does a lot of basketball stuff out in California. But that he just felt like not a kinship, but just like this guy reminded me, like this is an underachiever, a guy that really broke his butt trying to do the best he could, and he's probably the greatest shooter of all time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but there's something to be said for being transcendently good at a skill. Mm-hmm. In the sport, if you're transcendently good at a skill, and I think he qualifies as transcendently good in shooting.
100%.
Kind of important. It means he can have those games where he'll absolutely go off and hit a bunch of threes, and all of a sudden he's got, this crazy stat line, and people are like, oh, what happened? In that sport, people love that. Being able to have this sudden breakout game where he'll have this huge highlight thing. And again, back-to-back MVPs, unanimous MVP, all these things build on legacy. And he's got championships, so he doesn't have to worry about that. All these things are good. All these things will help you.
Really good, really good.
So I'll touch on this one here quickly. I think that stuff comes in waves, Ken. Sometimes you'll get, look, my favorite thing is, in those videos that I was talking about, that had 1 million views, I had thousands of thumbs down. Not a couple, thousands. Plural, like 2,000 or 3,000. And guess what? The more thumbs down I got, the more people saw the video. More opportunities for people to give thumbs down, but they kept watching the video. Tell it to the view count. I don't know what to tell you. So, but it also comes in waves. Like, my favorite was, most of my videos you do all right, because usually I'm covering a topic and I'm just explaining. If you don't care about what I'm saying, well, then why are you clicking on my video? Like, it's very clear cut what it is from the title and from everything else. It's pretty straightforward. But I had a thumbs down for the Dapsman video. I assume it was Dapsman. I know it was totally Dapsman because I saw some adjustments from Dapsman. I saw him change some of his way. I saw his hat suddenly got a little more aligned.
It did.
It's like, I saw him correct himself, check himself before he goes. It's like, I know it's not the same card, but it's like, it's like, wait a minute. Has it become self-aware? Does it know? Is it referring to the matte bags that are not shiny? Because if that happens, you guys have to let me know, because if that happens, I know he watched my video and probably hit the thumbs up. So I appreciate you, Dapsman.
I actually went to his Instagram. I just clicked on one clip that he had. I haven't watched really anything from him. I clicked on one clip, and he did the same exact thing. He talked about buying one card, and then he showed the price of another, like a different PSA grade, and said how cheap it was. Right. And it just didn't make any sense. I guess that's his thing. Like he
on an edited video, though, that's what made it so much fun for me. It's like, guys, it's so easy on an edited video. Actually, Filmington, if you're still around, question. So you were making the joke about this, like, but the question is which one? He was joking about buying the card, the Herbert card that was referenced in the video. But it's like, but the regular one or the autograph? Both out of 25. Very important. Very important. Now the people have to know the autograph version or the non-autograph version. Both are featured on the channel. That's very important. His parents still live here. His father, Dave Smith. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, so he's still definitely got roots. And that makes sense. That makes sense. There you go. All defense and no offense. Nah, you got to make the shots, man. It's important. It's all right, Ken. You can always, if you really just want to be objectionable, you can find ways. I assure you, there are ways.
I'm going to Kim's YouTube right now.
Start hitting some thumbs down there if you could. That'd be great.
Ken, I love your episodes that you do. I usually give them a thumbs up, but
yeah, it's like if you insist.
Love the episode, thumbs down. That's it.
Yeah, it's like all love, thumbs down, thumbs down, thumbs down.
I like sometimes when you're looking at it, and which is probably my biggest mistake. I shouldn't look, but like you'll have like 4 thumbs down, then you'll come back, you'll have 2. Like what happened to the 2? Or you'll have it's just funny how they do that.
Okay, I love this. Yeah. So this is I'm starting to enjoy myself now. Look at this. Flippin' Steve. Good evening, Steve. First time I've seen you here. I do enjoy your stuff. I do enjoy watching some of his live streams. Steve? So good evening. Yep, Ken, you're a lovable teddy bear now. I think these are facts.
He's awesome. I'm telling you, his channel, and I'm not saying this because he's on here. I said it in there. It's like watching the Discovery Channel. I mean, it was so educational about strip cards and grading and how you used it. It was. I just loved it.
No, completely. No, the thing is, So let me talk about a couple of these folks here. So Vintage Oddball Cards, I enjoy his videos because, like I said, I'm still a vintage guy at heart because when I was a kid, I started collecting vintage cards. I kind of got pigeonholed in the hockey thing because I'm very passionate about collecting my player. But it's like, no, I still have a foot in that vintage world because I spent way too much damn time studying some very obscure stuff where sometimes he'll reference something like, yep, I know that series. Yep, I know that series. And I had the good fortune at the time where I was mentored and got to pick the brain of some great collectors that put some amazing vintage collections together, they're all dead. So whatever well, they were older already at that time, but some of them had built amazing collections. And I was explaining to somebody the other day, I said, everything that I got to pick his brain about, some of these folks, some of it never got out there because they didn't have blogs. They didn't hang out on forums. They didn't do all that stuff. So whatever you acquired by talking and having conversations. And it's like, now I have that information. So from time to time when I get the chance, let me share a little bit here and there because it's kind of was handed over to me and I get to take it with me. But it's one of those things where I say like, but you also need to understand the demographics because it's like at that time I was a kid, I was in my teens. So that's why I like what Breakout Cards does. He's very lean into vintage. So I do enjoy and appreciate that. Because when I was in my teens, I was collecting vintage cards and I've got completed vintage sets that I started back then that I got to complete later on. But now I was the young blood at that time. It's like, well, now I'm, on Monday I've got a birthday, and now I'm closer to 40 than 30, and I get closer all the time. So it's one of those things. It's like I can't claim the young blood; that's theirs now. But I can hand off if there's some of those 20 somethings and those kids, if they take anything from it where I can talk about a vintage thing and give it to them. Here you go. This is yours now. I don't intend to go anywhere. I intend to be around a while. So I'd rather give some of that information now before I'm in my 60s and 70s and 80s. I don't want to be handing it off at the end of my life. I'd rather hand it off while I've still got some gas in the tank. But I'm not the kid anymore. I can't, that isn't me. Now you got to hand it off to them because you're the one who has to ride this out for the next 20 years to get to where I am. And then when your turn comes, you need to hand it off. That's the only way it's going to perpetuate. That's the only way it works. You just have to understand that. That's part of the deal.
Yeah.
So I've got Personal Finance Dads coming here. It's like collabs. It's like, yeah, Personal Finance Dad doesn't do collabs. Like, that's not even a thing.
I want to comment on that. I know he had Andy on one of his shows.
I was just going to say before Jordan.
Okay, go ahead.
Dustin had me on a while ago, and I know that helped my subscriber for sure. And Dustin knows how much I appreciate that. That was really fun.
And I was going to say, Dustin, if you want to do an analytical study on collabs and how much it boosts subscriber count, I'm at about 500 right now. So
I think what you should do
is have me on.
Could you guys do a collaboration? We'll play it in the Personal Finance Ads, his lane. You could do an analysis on New Orleans Saints quarterbacks, not Drew Brees. I think that'd be amazing. I think that'd be phenomenal. I think that would be a winner for everyone involved. And then end with Jameis Winston as the greatest QB in New Orleans Saints history.
I could probably, he's already great since he stole the crab legs. If I'm going to steal anything from the grocery store, it's going to be crab legs. So, that's already a huge statistical advantage for Winston. So I'm sure the numbers show, how great he is.
Look, I since we'll never know for sure, I stand on the opinion that after getting LASIK, which Jameis did, it's obvious to me that Tampa Bay would have won the Super Bowl with Jameis Winston. Like, if anything, Tom Brady brought them down. Like, dragged them down to his level. They barely scraped by in the playoffs. Like, it was sad. It was like, guys, bench this fool. Get him out of here. What? Send him packing. Get him on the bus. Send him back to Giselle. Thank goodness the defense was good. Otherwise, that would have been embarrassing for Tampa Bay. And the Tampa Bay dynasty would not go on. 2-time Stanley Cup champion, Super Bowl champion. Like, it's like Boston, but better weather. Now it's just all Tampa. I don't know. You keep saying this, but it's like I keep seeing you. I keep seeing you. I like the barbs they throw back and forth in their show and everything. It's like, listen, I get what you're saying. It's like, no, you got to lean in. You got to lean in on the cake thing. Like, look, man, you keep talking about this cake. You keep saying you eat this cake. We don't see you eating the cake. I call shenanigans, sir. You eat the cake on stream, I'll believe you. Eat the whole damn piece of cake. I want to see it consumed on the stream. It's not like you need to say anything anyway. Just stand there and nod and eat the damn cake. That's your stream. That's all I'm saying.
I'm down.
That'll probably be his best viewed one. Just go with it. Just roll with it. So Ozzy Card Dad had a question here. Actually, yes. Believe it or not, and people don't want to admit this. Believe it or not. Thumbs down, thumbs up. It's about the same. Why YouTube decided to do it that way, I don't know. Like a genuine, like I'm not joking. The ones on my channel that got the most views back then, the Blu-ray things, have like people talk about thumbs down. It's like, dude, thousands. I'm not exaggerating. It's thousands. You can go look. That number's humongous. It's absurd. It made me laugh. I was just like, okay, whatever. And I don't take it personally because a lot of them were like mad. They're like, oh, this isn't the movie. It's like, yeah, after 7 or 8 years, it hasn't get pulled down for copyright. You think it's the actual movie? You think it played clips from movie and nobody called for copyright strike? Nobody. Really.
Right.
Guys, I can't help you at that point. I don't know what to tell you. Yeah, Ken appreciates the cake. That's important. But no, it's like, we've been getting all the all-stars today. We got Flippin' Steve popping in, Personal Finance Dad popping in. So good evening, and thank you all for popping in. We even had Filmington sighting. Exciting.
It's awesome.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Appreciate you all popping in. Thanks for coming by. But so let's actually kind of move from there a little bit. I do enjoy the creator discussion, though, because it is interesting seeing the different ways that people can do it. Because there's not one way. There isn't one avenue. And it's not a one-size-fits-all. So people catch on. They get on the right thing at the right time, and boom, rocket on their back. And it's one of those things where I'm not morally opposed to bringing people on, even if they have a different way of doing things, because it could still be an interesting discussion. It's like, sometimes it's like, okay, let me see where you're coming from. Let me see what you're thinking. And then maybe it makes sense, maybe it doesn't. Because again, we're only getting a snippet from the videos you decide to make and produce and publish. And sometimes it's good. Let me ask you more questions. When I had Jordan on here the first time, he had never talked that much time consecutively, possibly ever. It's like 3 straight hours. I don't know.
I think Andy beat me.
No, I'm telling you, that was amazing. It was, I didn't think, but it's all because the host was so good. Otherwise, it would just fall apart.
These are just facts. But it's always made me laugh earlier. I will always take. Flattery will get you everywhere. But all I was going to say was that it was always funny to me that sometimes people will see, like, some folks do some stuff. It's like Carvin Chung, who basically created Exquisite and created the cup and all that. It's like, I interviewed him for over 10 hours.
Yeah, he's
10 hours.
He's a really good guy.
We originally had what was my record stream at that time. It was 6 hours plus. And then another one that ran over 4. So I talked to Carvin for over 10 combined hours on a live stream in this channel. And you can find out all about Exquisite, all about the cup, all about a variety of things. And he is a guy who works for the distributors. He has been in almost every segment of the hobby that you can. And by the way, I could bring him on 5 more times, 3 hours each, and we'd still have plenty of stuff to talk about. He's forgotten more about the hobby than most people know. He's a wealth of information because he's been on the distributor side. He's been at 2 manufacturers. Yeah. He was at Upper Deck and Panini for years and designed products. And now he's on the distributor side. He's been at 2 different distributors. So it's like, he knows a thing or two. It's like, there's a lot of information there to exploit. If you want to learn something, you could do worse than asking Carvin. He knows.
Cool. Yeah, he's a really great guy. I'm in a chat on Instagram that has him and Chris from House of Jordans and Adam Lefko, but just a bunch of bigger people in the hobby, just all in one chat. I don't know how I got invited into it, but they picked me to be one of the 32 or whatever get in there. And yeah, Carvin Chang's really nice guy, really smart.
I love this. So yes, Paul was there for all of Carvin's live streams. That is a fact. Paul was there for all 10 hours over the 2 shows. Okay, Josh, your timing is beautiful. We're going to discuss that right now. So Personal Finance Dad here says, done. We're doing collabs. Jameis is the dark horse. Look, if we're talking Jameis, I'll bring you on. That's not a problem. The entertainment that I'll get from that, no question. Hey. I'll reach out. We'll make it happen. I'll reach out. Like, if I'm going to have all these all-stars show up in my chat, I got to make some of them work.
Guys, I got it. I have to bug out. Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Carlos. I will come on and be watching in about a half hour or so. Jordan, talk to you guys soon. Thank you so much, Carlos.
No worries. Take it easy.
Have a good one, Andy.
All right, so let's touch on this one because Josh brought it up, and it is kind of something I wanted to touch on. And actually, Jordan, I think this will play into your alley a little bit. I was having a little bit of fun, and down there, probably what I got to do is I got to grab Chris from House of Jordans too a little bit about this because this plays into his alley a little bit as well. I made a video discussing. Appreciate that. Thank you so much. What I was going to say was that I made a quick discussion and I kept it at about 10 minutes. I wanted to keep it short and sweet because I wanted to get my point across as quickly as I could. But here we can expand a little bit more. So we got the alt thing, and that's where they talked about their $5.9 million quote unquote record. Now, in there, I wanted to keep it short and sweet. I didn't want to overplay it. I didn't want to go too far with it. I wanted to make sure that I got my point across so we could move on. But I knew on the live stream I'd have a little more time to flesh it out. So why don't I quickly pull that up? I had it ready to go here. So our good friends at Alt. So this is from their Instagram. So they got the little video playing that you can see the card. So I'll play it for a little bit here for you guys. No audio on this one, but you can see that's the card. There's your logo, man. Very fancy. It's a cool card. And we talked about Steph Curry a little earlier, so it is a big card, no question. Mm-hmm. But they said with a record-breaking purchase for $5.9 million.
Right.
That is not true. That is not correct.
Correct.
Yeah. What they did is they bought 51% of said card. And the thing is, if you go further down in the same post, this card, which Alt owns 51% of, so not 100%, they own 51, so that's about $3 million, give or take, is an anchor to a second investment fund and trading cards. If you're interested in learning more, link in bio, whatever. Fantastic, phenomenal. But that's all well and good. I don't have an issue. So here's the thing. There's some folks that get really worked up about this. They get really worked up about it. I'm not bothered by this. And this is maybe where we can use your background a little bit and play into this. And I think it'll be good. Okay, so I'll stop that. You only get so much airtime unless you want to pay for it. Again, I will shamelessly sell it. I will become the Alt podcast in 2 seconds if y'all bring the bag. But in the meantime, I will mock you without mercy because that is my way. Okay, so here's the deal. That is bullshit. That is garbage. It is not a sale. To me, a sale requires you to actually buy the thing, not a fraction of the thing, because if that's a valid sale, then damn it, I need to renegotiate with my bank. I only want to buy 51% of this house. I just need controlling interest. And it will either reduce my mortgage payments or it'll mean I get to just stop paying. It's like, I only need to get to 51%. I don't care. I just need controlling interest. I get to live here and then y'all can keep the other half of the other 49%. It's on paper. I don't care what you do. Now, from the seller perspective, for the record, I think it's brilliant. I don't have an issue with it, but I'll explain why I think it's brilliant for the seller. For them, publicity-wise, it's brilliant. I'm cool with it. And I'm actually okay with them doing it. Like, I don't care. Do as many fractional things as you want. I'm cool with it. I'm even cool with the valuation. I may disagree with it, but I'm okay with it. My issue was always calling it a purchase. It is not a purchase unless you buy the whole thing, to me. And this verbiage is very important because to me, this should be like in its own separate angle as a record. You want to call this the highest valuation on a sports card? Great. Although the Ruth technically is $6 million, so you couldn't technically call it that. So you kind of skirted around this a little bit because the Ruth was claiming over 6.
Right.
So technically you couldn't claim highest valuation, so you tried to cheat. You tried to cheat by saying, oh, this is the biggest purchase. No, you're in the Ruth category. So you're actually underneath the Ruth. You're over there in the valuation category. The purchase category is over here. And right now, I think Rob G's 52 Mantle, the PSA 9 is $5.2 million. I'm comfortable calling that a purchase. It was a private sale, but he bought the thing. He doesn't own 85% of the thing. He theoretically owns 100% of the thing. That's a sale.
Right. And yeah, I see it from your perspective as well. I don't really care, to be honest. Not something I'm going to get worked up about. It doesn't affect my life negatively or positively. But when a sale like that happens, you look at the value of the card overall, and the value of a card or value of anything is something someone's willing to pay for it. Mm-hmm. And no one was willing to pay for 100% of it. So we don't know the true valuation. And I understand they did it for publicity to, get their name out there. But I could take a Pokemon card I have over here and sell you 1/7 millionth of this card for $1. And I think that would bring the valuation up to 7 million, something like that.
Yeah. And that's that joke made the social media rounds. But here's the thing. With a 1/1, technically, you could do that. Because with a card that multiples exist, somebody could actually sell the card for a real price, and then they could, even if you want to try to troll people, you could be like, but you could do that with a 1/1. And I may still do the video. We'll see if I want to do it. But I went and pulled a couple of 1/1s. I grabbed some screen grabs of some sales of some 1/1s, like of good players. I grabbed like a Ken Griffey Jr. Super Refractor of like a modern product that sold. And I think it sold for like $1,100. Mm-hmm. But let's say you're the owner of that and you decide to sell a 10% stake in it for $500. Does that mean it's not 5,000? So I don't need to push it all the way to the millions. But if you consider that to be okay, you can just make up your own valuation. If for some reason someone agrees to buy that stake, it's like, but price doesn't make it. But if it's a 1-of-1, you can't definitively say that it could not sell for that. You could argue that it probably doesn't make sense, or you could argue that I think you inflated that a bit. It's a little weird. Now, Aussie Card Dad touches on. So there's a couple of things. I want to have a little bit of fun with this segment because your background and where you worked, I think, will help make this interesting. So his question is, does the 49% owner, do they need the 49% owner to approve future dealings? That's going to be dependent on what kind of contract they sign. Whatever arrangement Alt did with them, that's going to be bearing on this. So I don't know for sure. I'd be interested in seeing what that arrangement actually was, how much control or no control they've got. But here's my question. So let's start here, and then I'll kind of take it to a much more interesting place. We'll get it a little bit more complicated as we go. But let's start simple. You got 51% for Alt, you got 49% for the owner. This right here is a win-win for the owner because you've got $3 million for the 51% stake, but you still own 49% stake. So if Alt decides to sell it, they get 6 or 7 million for it. Well, then you get 49% of that. You own a 49% stake. You want 100%. You need to buy my 49. That's how this is going to have to work. If you want that, if you actually want to own the card, lock, stock, and barrel, if that's what you would like. So to me, I can double dip. I get 3 million now and potentially more money down the road. That's kind of cool. That could be interesting. So that's the first piece. Second piece, and this is where it gets fun. Okay. Let's talk different financial instruments and derivatives and different variants that we could play on this. I introduced this concept all the way back last October where I asked what happens if you run a second series or a third series or a fourth series, a variety of different things. I introduced that all the way back then. And then I was able to bring it back around. I go, I'm waiting for you guys. I'm waiting. You own 49%. What's to stop you from going to Collectible and offering to fractionalize the 49%? You can have a deal with Alt for the 51. You can have a deal with Collectible for the 49 and double dip and make money twice. And now you've got shares in this one, potentially, if Alt decides to go that route. You could have shares in the 51 and you could have shares in the 49. And you could have two different prices. So what's the valuation?
The valuation's what someone's willing to spend for it at total.
Agreed. But do you get where like that could be really imagine you've got 49% that you've got $100 a share, and you've got the 51%, same amount of shares, that is 105. Technically, that doesn't make any sense, but these are in two different platforms. They could be in two different markets. And you're almost treating them as separate. You basically ripped the card almost in half. And you've said like, okay, so you are trading on the 51 and you're trading on the 49, and we've got two different price points because they're in two different markets. And they've decided it's 100, but you've decided it's 105. So who's right?
Yeah.
Both could technically be right, because these are different series of shares. This is like when a company has preferred shares and common shares. Mm-hmm. You can treat it something like that. Now you've fully entered into the stock market world. Now you take your 49, so that's one scenario. But what if you take your 40? Again, I'm making this increasingly complicated as we go along. So what if you take your 49, you do a little bit of that with Collectible for maybe 29%, but you still got 20%, and you decide to put it into a derivative type instrument. So now this person has grabbed a little bit of this, a little bit of that, this other thing, and now you've got a Gretzky rookie. Maybe you fractionalize that, you pop that into this derivative, and you grab that over there, and now you've got multiple cards into this financial instrument you can now trade as a one thing. But you've actually got fractionalized pieces of a bunch of different cards from a bunch of different markets. And you've decided to stuff that into this little package that is now this, card investment fund, this card index fund, this card mutual fund. Now what's the valuation?
And you weren't good at calculus?
Not so great. The concepts, though, don't elude me. The concepts don't elude me in the slightest. You want me to do the math? Do you want me to do the math on a board? I'm going to struggle. But the concepts, okay. I'm not lost in the concepts. No. The concepts I loved. The concepts, I was all over that.
Yeah, and it makes sense, but for just the average person coming into the hobby, if you explained it to them like that, they would be like, okay, maybe cards aren't for me. Mm-hmm. But we're also talking about like an elite group of people who just have really deep pockets, and that there are new people in the hobby with deep pockets, and they would like to hear something like that. But yeah, the fractional share in general, I never really liked that idea. Just in general, I understand the concept; it makes sense. But like, can you truly have 51%? Like, what if one day I own 51% of it? What if I just want to cut off my 51%? What can the 49% owner do? Nothing.
Unless in the arrangement you gave them a veto over that decision. Now, why you would do that is a different conversation. But
Right.
there, it depends. That's why I say it depends on the contract. It 100% depends on the contract. So Josh here puts the question: thoughts on whether you think they tried to buy 100% of the card and the owner said you can only have 51%? That's possible. And maybe, like I said, I'm just throwing out scenarios. What I'm trying to do, your point is valid. The reason I'm bringing this in is not because I'm trying to confuse people. I promise it's not. What I'm trying to explain is that there is a ton of complexity. It's just really today, fractional already confuses people. It doesn't confuse me because I loved, and bless you for bringing up The Big Short. I love that movie. And the book, I've read both. I've read the book and a bunch of books on the financial crisis. Love it. That's why I brought derivatives into this. Like I said, the concepts of these different things, dude, I'm in. I could do this for days. But if you ask me to work the underlying math, well, then let me go get a calculator. I'll get back to you. But not my thing. The point, though, is that when people started going into this, so I'll see if Jordan's connection disappeared again. It might be. You still there? Oh, you froze.
Yeah, it's off and on.
Okay, that's fine. Don't worry about it. So anyway, the point that I'm trying to get across here is I'm not trying to confuse people. That's not my goal. All I'm trying to say, as far as trying to explain this concept and trying to explain what I'm talking about here, is that I'm saying we have opened Pandora's box. We just need to understand that. We need to understand that we have opened the door to a lot more complexity about how we get from point A to point B. For most people, these cards don't really matter that much. It's fine. Don't worry about it. But what you're going to find is that as you go along, these things could get more complicated. We could start off with fractional, and you could have these weird arrangements where, like, you take it and then you just keep working through these various angles. And it's like you started off with, okay, so you bought a percentage, but then this other percentage could be fractionalized into this other thing. And you could work with this platform. You could work with this platform. You could work with this platform. And before you know it, you're actually completely confused about where you started and where you began. And for most people, they won't care because they're not in the place to do it. They're also not interested in fractional. It's not going to bother them. Don't worry about it. But the more different markets there are, the more different opportunity there is for all this segmentation, the possibility of actually creating a derivative on it, which you totally could. People don't understand. Derivatives almost brought down the American financial system. That's how powerful they are. Now, is that going to bring down sports cards? No, probably not. At the end of the day, does it make a difference if the damn card crashes? No. If 100 cards crash? No. It doesn't make a difference. If you still want to buy your bowl card for $5 and somebody sells it to you for $5, it's worth $5. We're done. It's okay. Right. Like, that didn't change. For most people, this is not going to affect you, but the more people play in that zone, there are some people that are counting on this market getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And when you introduce people that want to play that game, they will want these more complicated financial instruments because it makes it another asset class. And as soon as you enter into that realm, you'll be sitting there like, I don't understand what's going on right now, and I don't understand anything that Carlos just said. Exactly my point. That's exactly my point.
What you said is a lot of math, and you know that the average person is going to be like, wow, that's a lot. But when you look at the cards as a hobby, if you just look at it as something you collect and you have fun, then you shouldn't be worried about all that extra stuff that's going on. You just want to have the cards for your PC, and that makes you happy. I have cards I invest in. I have cards I collect, my Cleveland cards, and then I have my data analyst stuff that I do for my 40-hour week, and I'm starting to combine that a little bit, but I'll never go to that extreme to where it just confuses people and they don't want to be a part of something that's supposed to be fun.
No, that's completely fair. The reason why I like to introduce, sometimes what I like to do, and I think there is an instructive element to it. The reason I have this luxury where I am an analyst by trade. It is my job to look at things, to take a step back and just look at the full picture as much as I can. For most people, it will not make or break them. Their day-to-day will not get impacted that much. That's why I always kind of push back against people freaking out about stuff. It's like, guys, you'd be surprised. Part of the reason that there's so little stress in my life is that I really do just worry about stuff I can control. And you'd be surprised how little in your life you actually have control over. And as soon as you come to that realization, it's like, oh, Not really that much for me to worry about, is there? No. You can pretty much you can watch stuff, you can pay attention to, worry about what affects you, worry about what moves the needle in your world, but you can still be aware of this other stuff. I like to pull people to the precipice and let them look over the ledge. Just like, hey, just look at what's there. Oh, that's really scary. Okay, I'll pull you back, but I want you to know it's there. I just need you to understand it exists. I don't need you to understand the particulars. But just understand it can get really murky over there. There's a lot going on. And there's going to be the temptation for folks to do it. And they'll get greedy. Greed is not a metric we can fully measure, but it's always there. We need to understand greed is a big part of this. That's how the money got so big. And that's why a lot of people think it's going to keep getting bigger, because greed is a renewable resource. It's almost inexhaustible. We'll always have some greed. I can guarantee that. So Greatly Big Scott, good evening. So if you bought into fractionals, you have to wait until the next pandemic to sell. Not necessarily. There are going to be some of those cards where maybe they'll have a boost. And it's like a stock. But if you're playing penny stock style, you're going to have to be ready to with a light trigger. When you see what you need to see, you need to be willing to just press that button and go and get out. But that is going to be a very stressful life. You're going to be sitting there waiting for the moment. That happens with people in crypto, because stuff can happen like this. It just went down 40%. Yep. In the middle of the night. Yep. Because people in Asia just started trading it like crazy, and a ton of it. If you weren't up, you missed it. You could have bought low and then it rebounded 20% in a couple hours, and all of a sudden you rebuy.
And I just had a thought about the Steph Curry for all it, since they bought 51%, they paid what was around $3 million. That's what they were willing to pay that day. That's what someone was willing to pay. Just the next day, if they wanted to sell that 51%, and the highest buyer they could find was $2 million, that would mean the perceived value of that card is now $4 million, and they've lost money. So the transaction doesn't necessarily have to happen for value still to be applied to a card.
Yeah, that's the danger when you go for these big valuations. It's the same thing that happens during an IPO. Like, let's just bring it into the business world for 5 seconds. Like I said, I won't dwell on it too long, but I just need you to understand conceptually. In an IPO, you've got these people trying to figure out what is the value of this company. How much should we sell the shares for? How many shares should we sell? There's a bunch of people that argue over it. They're trying to figure out, like, well, we project revenues in this, and we think this. You don't want to go too low because you didn't generate as much money as you could have when you sold it. But you don't want to go too high because then you set the expectations so high that if you can't come close to meeting the expectations, you basically torpedo the stock. And these founders might hold all this stock that now their fortunes are based upon the stock price. The CEO's job is to maintain shareholder value, which is the most dangerous words in the business world. Shareholder value. That is a euphemism for short-term thinking that gets us past this quarter. That's what that is. And it doesn't mean you're going to make the best choice. It means you're going to make the choice that'll get us the numbers that we need for this quarter. After that, God help us. And that happens all the time. You got these companies that sell off technologies that, by the way, it never, it's a bit of it's kind of a fun concept in thinking. But if the corporate world existed the way it does right now, back then, you would have had people that were doing the horse-drawn buggy selling shares in the Ford Model T before the Ford Model T took off, because they're like, okay, well, we need to make our numbers. And then down the road, the horse-drawn buggy just got replaced by that thing that you just sold off. If you had held on to it a little bit longer, you would have really made the money. But now you're stuck in the antiquated thing, and they're moving on without you. That happens all the time. You sell off the thing too soon because you need it to make numbers. So you're like, oh, but the R&D is costing us so much. It's like, but it's not costing as much as it'll cost you if it turns out that thing now replaces what you do, and you just sold it off. And now your competitor owns it, and now they get to crush you, and you're done. But you made this quarter's numbers.
Right.
So it's like, that's the mentality that seeps in when you're worrying about shareholder value. As soon as you introduce that into this world, this is not different. Now you're making short-term decisions to try to spike the price in the short term. What can you do? What can you say? What can you show? The other aspect of this plays into this. I showed you all the complexity. But as soon as you introduce more of this mentality, now it's like, okay, now you're boy who cried wolf.
Right.
You said this $5.9 million. So all of a sudden, all those news outlets that reported it that were too lazy to do the work, if enough people fact check them and crush them, they're going to be like, okay, well, next time you say this, we will look a little more closely and we just won't believe you. So it won't work every single time. I do prefer greed is good, Paul. Greed is good from Wall Street is my personal favorite. But if you're going to have a greed, quote, greed is a virtue is an interesting one, but greed is good is classic. It's simple. It's short. Yeah, we're suffering from management accounting irregularities. That's right, exactly. But you introduce this. As soon as you bring in this world, you've brought it in. That's why I mentioned the derivative. I'm not sitting here expecting a derivative on this 5 seconds from now. But I'm sure there's somebody sitting in an accounting office going like, we could probably blend this with it and we'll do some tranches and we'll do all these different levels based on these risk factors and then combine this and then we'll spice in some bowl. It'll be like Salt Bay, just sprinkle in a little bowl on there. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it.
I love bowl.
That I have to, he is a favorite. He must be brought up. When the moment is right, he must be brought up. I'll take that as a compliment. Preach. But that's the thing though. This is it begins with the simple. That's why I introduced it all the way back in October. I posed the question, what about Series B? What about Series C? What about Series D? That was all the way back then. And I was like, you slowly come to my reality. I was waiting so patiently. And then the fun part about it is if you say it and you record it, you can then tell people, it's like, oh, by the way, I was right. Let me play this back. Because I understand their greed. They can't help themselves. They do this every time. It's not like this is new. What is old is new again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, AIG decides to insure it. Yes, that worked out great last time. I think that's totally a thing that should happen. I think that'd be good. Is Lehman Brothers still around? Can we do that? Can they get into sports cars? No, too soon. Oh, darn. But I posed the question not because I'm worried about it happening today or tomorrow. I posed the question because if it happens not too far down the road and somebody doesn't get that light bulb going off over their head, well, then don't act surprised. Mm-hmm. All I can do is present it to you as it's an alternate reality that could come to pass. You just need to understand, just be aware that is a thing because we've already opened the door to it. The door's open. So now people are going to start getting in and there'll be some very creative people sitting in those like, how can we make this even more profitable? What can we do?
If people are willing to spend money for a digital asset, then anything is possible.
Listen, man, it's all about the CryptoPunks. Come on, get ready for it. It's coming. The future is now, Jordan. The future is now. But yeah, that's the reason why I wanted to start off with the story of the alt thing. The alt thing in and of itself is not that interesting. The video stuck to a very narrow band. I wanted to keep it simple. I just wanted to be like, as much as we can, let's push back on this. Let's try to separate a sale from a valuation. You want to call it a record valuation? Do that. You want to call it a record sale? Make sure it's an actual sale. You sell 100%, it's a sale. Great. I don't care how you do it. eBay, Golden, whatever. Awesome. That's a sale. This is a valuation. We sold 1% of the bowl for $100, and now it's trillions of shares. So it is now the greatest card of all time in accordance with the prophecy. It is all I wanted. Right. It's all we want. We need this. This is all I want. So Jordan, find this bowl card for me. I need a bowl 1 of 1. It's got to be a 1 of 1. This is important. Find a bowl 1 of 1, and I will buy one. Put like 47 zeros in front of it. 1. And I will pay you $10 for it. And it will be the greatest card in existence. And we will laugh in the face of this paltry Steph Curry. Laugh in the face.
We will talk. I'll try to find one.
Absolutely, as you should. Done. Done.
Put it all over the place.
Nobody can help Canucks. No one can. That is a fact. But yes, so that's the alt thing. It's actually not that complicated, but the implications of it were infinitely more interesting to me than the actual one thing. I'm just saying, stop lying, guys. That's really all I want to say about the alt thing. But the future and the direction it could take us potentially is a lot more interesting to me. And there's a bunch of stuff that can go from there. Now, let me touch on this. Let me branch off from that. The other thing that happened a couple of weeks ago, we had all those buyouts. You got Golden now under the same umbrella as PSA indirectly, Collectors Universe. That's going on. CCG is now doing its own thing. Any thoughts on that piece? There's some interesting stuff going on there too.
For me, honestly, I know there's been a lot of talk about all of it in the content world, and Andy tells me what people are talking about. I don't really watch too much sports card content, so I don't really have too much thoughts on the golden purchase. But I do believe in CSG, and I liked the purchase. I think it was like Black Mountain, something like that.
I think Black Rock, but yeah.
Black Rock, something like that. And since I do have a membership with them, and I've sent them, I'm part of the problem for the junk slab era. I sent them 700 cards because their bulk grading price was $7.20 if you had a member, $7.20 if you had.
And that's without the subgrades, right?
Right. So I went ahead and just sent a bunch. I was like, if I get them in a slab, they're going to be worth more than $7.20 more than what I paid for them. So I'm going to make money. So I do like that company, and I hope they can grow, and that was positive for me. I like seeing that news, but as far as
do they charge you before the grades or after?
After.
Actually, that leads into a question I have for you, but please continue.
Oh no, that was it.
Okay. So, the reason I asked that question, there was an interesting thing that was brought up, and Yannick hasn't been here tonight, but he's usually one of the guys that hangs out in the chat a little bit as well. I think he's off on vacation, so hopefully he's enjoying himself. He'll catch it later on replay probably. But he brought something up that I had already seen in a couple of places. Bench Clear, I think, Breaker Culture, I think, brought it up in a short podcast they did, because I do pay attention to a lot of content. And I'm so grateful when someone brings something a little different to the table. Anything different. At this point, I'm like, please, just anything remotely original. Something. Just give me something that isn't just a regurgitation of what I heard 56,000 times.
Right.
That's right. That's the reason why I like to throw stuff out there. Like, by the way, watch out for card derivatives, because I'm pretty sure no one has mentioned it. So it's like, I'll take that. Thank you. If I hear Beckett talk about card derivatives, I swear to God, I know where that came from, Beckett. I'm watching you. I'm not saying he stole shit from me before, but I'm watching you, sir. I'm watching you very closely.
And speaking of that, you watch a bunch of content. Me and Andy, our goal is to make something unique. So when if you can give us some constructive feedback, I'm sure Andy will watch this later. But is there anything you see that's not unique, or that we're repeating that you see from other channels, or are we living up to our goal?
Well, I think it's impossible to come up with 100% uniqueness. Right. I think you guys, I think the best you can do most of the time is come up with a different angle. Even the derivatives thing is not like invented derivatives. Derivatives exist. All I'm doing though is pointing out that the conditions are in place. So you can still pursue something. If we talk about cards, you will repeat something, like guaranteed. What you can do though is you can try to find a different angle, a different direction. For the most part, you guys have done a pretty good job with that, but it's something what I can do is I can keep an eye a little bit more closely and just kind of, because I've got my ears to the ground and I can't see everything because nobody can, but to the best of my ability, if I see something that I heard that comes out, because it's the old joke, 1,000 monkeys and 1,000 typewriters will eventually write the greatest novel ever written. If enough people take the same subject matter on, there will be repetition simply because. Like, you can try to come up with a unique angle. You can bring in your own experiences into it. But there's a possibility that someone will accidentally run into that same line of thinking. That doesn't mean you stole it. It just means that it happens. But if I hear the verbatim verbiage, which is what I have heard in the past in some places, if I hear verbatim verbiage that I know I said exactly that way earlier, then I'm like, interesting. Because it's like, how did you come across that exact sequencing of words? That's kind of interesting. So that's kind of what I keep an eye out on. But if you end up with the same general concept, it's like, well, it happens. Like if you take a stab at it, enough people take a stab at it, there's likelihood a couple people will at least come up with something similar. That's what, even the light bulb. Edison wasn't the only one who came up with that idea, and electrical currents and playing around with different types. There were multiple people who were chasing the same path. It's just who gets there first and who basically feels derivative after. That's usually how that stuff works. But I'll keep an eye, and if there's any feedback, I'll be happy to share it. There's no problem. But,
appreciated.
But what I was thinking about was when I'm trying to get back to where we were here a second ago. Shoot. I was coming around to it, and now I lost where I was.
Talking about CSG.
Yeah. No, there was something else. Now I'm thinking about it here. Oh yes, now I remember. I got it now. So I heard in a couple of places now, and Yannick brought it up as well because I think he heard the same thing from Breaker Culture, and what I think it was Ty and Breaker Culture, if memory serves me. I could be mistaken. Someone can correct me. He was talking about concerns he has where he saw something with Wells Fargo reducing the amount of or removing or whatever certain lines of credit based on certain things. It was kind of what's seemingly an unrelated discussion, but he was basically what he was thinking about, what it got him thinking about, which I had also been starting to think about previously. That's why I said people can arrive at the same thought in different directions, but still find their way to the same place. And what I'd started thinking about, and the reason I asked you the question about when you paid, is one of the things that we're waiting on. I made a video where my exact wording was, grading is the great sword of Damocles hanging over people's heads. Because what happens with grading can very much affect the market because it is the lubricant for the market. It's the reason you sent it in. It's not because you enjoy plastic holders. It's because you felt there was an opportunity to sell them for more than what you paid for the card and what you paid for the plastic to be put on it. So, and a lot of people operated on that premise. What happens to people who did send bowl base cards that just don't have the value in it? What happens if people send, or they paid for those higher tiers, they've had to wait forever to get their stuff even still, and it turns out the card, even in the plastic, is not worth as much as they paid for it, and they're paying for the stuff on credit, and they're doing a bunch of other things. Bring it back to that financial crisis analogy. What happens if people realize, I got $1,000 worth of grading fees? Those cards are not worth $1,000. I'm going to cancel my credit card before PSA charges me. And then PSA is sitting there with a stack of slabs that people won't pay for because the cards in the holders are not worth. So basically, in the financial crisis, what precipitated a lot of that stuff was people defaulting on their mortgages intentionally, being like, I can't afford this payment.
Right.
Here's the keys. Take the house. I was like, but don't you want? I'd rather you take the house. I'm not giving you a dime. I'm out of here. Here you go. And the banks are sitting there with houses that are now worth pennies on the dollar. PSA could be sitting on tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of slabs don't get paid for because they don't charge until it grades. If you realize that it's actually that you'd be better off canceling your credit card and telling PSA to screw off than actually paying to get a bunch of slabs that are effectively worthless to you. Why would you pay for them?
Yeah, I'm not sure what PSA does in a situation like that. Andy told me that people have been canceling orders before they get into the research stage. They've been just canceling the order to get their cards back. So PSA is having to worry about sending cards back that people didn't even pay for. But yeah, that would be a terrible situation for PSA. And I did want to make a comment on the CSG order that I sent.
Sure.
Some of them were to sell later. If I had like $1 base card that would be worth more than $10, if I send it in to be graded for $8, why not? But there was still a lot of cards that I sent in for professional opinion, and I was willing to pay $7.20 for professional opinion. And if I get a 9.5 Gem Mint or a 10 from CSG, I can later cross that over to PSA one day to where it'd be worth even more for more valuable cards. So it's not just about making the money. I did want to make that point, but I never thought about canceling a credit card.
No, what I'm getting at though is that not everybody was taking the approach you took. There were people who saw gold in them VAR hills because for a period of time it was. You send it in for grading, you get the thing back, you sell it for multiples of what you paid. It was automatic. People built an entire business model based on this idea and sent in card after card. The reason why PSA has a glut in the first place is people were sending in a bunch of stuff that probably wasn't worth putting the plastic in the first place. I only pose the question and ask what happens when those people realize that a bill is going to come due at some point. It's taken PSA a while, but eventually they will get to those. And they're sitting there going like, so how much is that card worth now even if it gets a 10? What's it worth now? Well, I'm not paying for that. Hell no. It's like, because it would be easy. It would be very easy in comparison to somebody handing off their keys to the bank and just skipping town. It's a lot easier to cancel your credit card. Switch all your charges on your regular charges on a different card. get out of it entirely. PSA hasn't charged you yet. When PSA goes to charge you, there's no card to charge. That'd be real easy to do.
I'm trying to think the bulk price before they shut down the bulk rating. I think it was around $14-15.
There were different stages of it. I remember that. Yeah, I remember that that for the bulk rater that I used to use. Now it's been some time now, but the one that we had around here, they were charging about $20 a card. So it just depends. It depends on your bulk rater and what rate they got at the time.
So I would think there aren't too many cards that really would be worth less in a slab, even if you look at Bull.
But remember, PSA is quote unquote grading harder. If you get back a couple of 8s and a couple of 9s, I understand. But the point is that there are people who do. Remember, the truth doesn't matter. It's what people believe. If you believe that, wait a minute, if I get back a bunch of 8s, I'm dead. And how many cards did I send in? Because you may have overextended yourself. You may have sent in more cards expecting this great windfall, and now you're waiting month on month on month. Again, this isn't everybody, but there are folks out there that I guarantee you use credit and to buy a bunch of these cards, sent in these cards expecting this big windfall, and they're sitting there as month and month goes by, they're making these payments, and they're sitting there like, wait a minute. What? They start running those numbers like, I can't afford that. When that bill comes due, it ain't gonna happen, bro. Just no. It's basic math. It's one of those things. That's where it is a little bit interesting. It's like, because when one person brings it up, and I see Sanderson has a comment here, and I'll touch on that in a second. I'll have a little fun with it. So quick, I'll touch on Aussie Card Dads here. I'm interested to see what happens when conflict of interest issues pop up. I think they will. Who holds them accountable? What regulations will be required in the future? I think people are banking on way too many rich regulation, and I'll touch on the regulation piece in a second, but I think you're hoping. You're hoping. And I think you're going to be very disappointed in what you get. There's a couple of scenarios where that's not going to work for you. Yep. So yeah, I don't need to teach them. It's out in the world already. Because the reason why it came up on Yannick's radar, and the reason it was coming up on my radar, is I heard 2 or 3 podcasts mention it. So it means it's already out in the ether. People are asking that question, and that's all it takes. There are going to be some people sitting there going like, wait a minute, that's a good idea. That'll get me out of this problem. I didn't even think of that. Yeah. I sat back. I was thinking about that a couple months ago because I specifically said grading can be the hobby's sword of Damocles. If you guys go Google what that is, that was mythology, and that was a thing where there was a sword hanging over this guy. He was king, but that was like representative of this thing could fall on me and kill me at any time. So he was living his life in terror the whole time. He's like, this could fall at any point. There's nothing holding it up. It's literally magic. And as soon as this thing falls, I die. So that was the mythology point of it. It's like, what do you think third-party grading is right now? It is the sword of Damocles. You get to be king until you don't. Until it falls, and then you die. That's why it's so much fun for me, Jordan. I get to sit here and be like, I'm just gonna bring this up to you, just so you know. And it's like, and then you look up and you're like, oh dear God, no, he's right. Of course, that's so much fun. I have a good time. Yeah, most of the base cards graded come back 8s and 9s are losing money. That is true. That is a fact. But that's why I simply propose it. Trust me, there are people out there thinking about it. By the time podcasts, I was percolating. Sometimes I'll have an idea, but I won't make a video on it for quite a while because I got to sit back and percolate on it. I need to sit. I've got ideas for videos for months from now, but I'm percolating on it. It's going to take me some time to flesh out what I want to do with it. But this one, as soon as I heard it on that podcast, I was like, oh, so now you're catching up. You're starting to think about it now. So I'm like, okay, now might be the time to bring this up. I've already been thinking about this one for a while. That's why I use the sword of Damocles thing. It's like, you don't understand. I gave you one reason why. There's a lot of reasons why I think that's true. Grading is your friend until it's not. It works for you until it doesn't. It's always been there. We have this love-hate relationship with it. It's this thing. Your folks are starting to learn how dependent this market has been on it with PSA shutdown, with CSG getting stuff getting pushed back as the backlog's gotten bigger. BGS has gone back. It's like, it's like, that's why I say, like, I'm curious. Are you going to go to SGC or not? That I'm just posing that general question. It's like, well, they're doing the quick turnaround times. Why aren't you guys going shouldn't you all be rushing, sending stacks to SGC, like hundreds of cards at a time? SGC should be screaming no mas. Why isn't it happening?
Mhm.
That's weird. Seems kind of interesting.
Yeah.
It happens. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Sanderson Orr gave me the King of All Media because it's the podcast and the video version. Now you got to bring the sword down, man. I lose nothing. That's the part of the reason I have so much fun is that I lose nothing. If the market drops 105%, Carlos is negatives? Yeah, it is now. I lose nothing. I don't care. Makes no difference to me. If it goes up 1,000%, whatever. Great, I'll sell.
Right.
like, what difference does it make? Like, if it drops to nothing, I buy, and I won't give you much. If it goes up a ton, okay, then you can have a bunch of this shit. Enjoy. It's yours. You want to give me a stack of cash for that? Bring it. But that's what I say. Like, as a collector, I lose nothing. I've been here long enough. It's like, what? I was here during the Dark Ages. It wasn't that bad. Trust me. Nobody died.
Mhm.
That's why I always think it's fun. It's like, guys, it's not that dramatic. These are cards. It's supposed to be fun. But there are people who took it way too seriously and extended themselves where they shouldn't have. Those are the people I worry about. Those are the ones that may be your problem. It's not the folks that that calculated it and said, okay, what's the worst case scenario? Okay, it's still worth the risk. They'll still pay their bills because they understood there was a risk going in. But that's not everybody. I don't even think that's the majority. I think that's the minority. And there's a lot of folks who thought there was easy money to be made. And then now they're getting a little bit, their palms are starting to sweat a little bit. They're like, what am I going to do? Because those bills are coming due and PSA will try to collect. And then PSA, I think, basically at that point, they have to eat it and own the cards. I think they can divest themselves of them, but I don't know if they have an easy way. Well, I guess they could give them all to Golden.
It's true.
Wait a minute. Conflict of interest.
Carlos, I got to hop off.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, it's getting around 11 o'clock.
Yep.
Thanks for having me on.
No, take off. Have yourself a good one. Well, I think we'll wind her down here. I just wanted to have a little fun and bring in a couple of different folks to chat about some of these other components, just to get some different opinions and pieces into it. Have yourself a good one. Cool. So RD Cards, good evening. Is there a price point you sell cards? Absolutely. It would take a lot, but yeah, of course I would. I love the cards. I enjoy the cards. I've been collecting them for 25 years, but, and I've made the joke before on the stream. If Nat Turner came here and just bonked his head and said, I must have all the Medanos Carlos has and offers me millions of dollars, there's a lot I can do with millions of dollars. Bro, I'll fly him to you. I'll even do the quarantine after. Don't worry about it. It'll be fine. Because I enjoy the cards. And the question then is like, oh, but you won't be able to rebuild the collection. You're right, I won't. But I can still go get a couple of select pieces that I enjoy, build myself a little mini Mount Rushmore of some of my favorites, and, you know, pay off the condo, buy a slightly nicer condo, live in that, and still do my stuff. I'll still find something to collect. I'm not worried about that. But I'm not so attached to the items that I'm stupid. I'm going to collect because I enjoy collecting. But I've always spent the money with the idea that I don't expect a return. But if someone wants to ridiculously overpay for some of this stuff, I'm game. Sure. Send the money my way. I have no issue with that. But that's how you have to kind of approach it. You have to understand that most people have a price. I think there's probably some holdouts who would be like, I wouldn't sell at any price. And I understand that. I can respect it. I don't think that's most people. I think that's the minority. I think most people will look at it and go, if this is just some money, that's fine. If it's a life-changing amount, well, then it's life-changing. I'm sorry, I don't need the cards that badly. I understand how much time it took me to compile that collection, and I won't be able to rebuild it. I can never rebuild that collection ever again from scratch. It's not possible. That doesn't mean it's worth it for me to keep it at all costs. It's just, I can't. So that's just something I understand. But I don't think anybody's banging down my door to do that. But if they did, I'd entertain it. And if they got the cash to make it happen, then, hey, back the Brinks truck and let's make it happen. I don't have an issue with that. So long story short, yes, absolutely. But I don't expect that to happen anytime soon. Okay. So quickly, we talked about the Hobbypalooza there. We had fun with that. I brought the Sword of Damocles down on us and explained how, you know, third-party grading could ruin us and end us all. So we've had a little fun with that as well. As well as had a little chat with both Andy and Jordan related to a little bit of kind of their perspective and angle as far as some of this, some of the implications of the alt thing. The alt thing is simple enough, like I said, but there's all these other things that I do think about. I kind of sit back and look at it and go like, there could be some interesting stuff with that. We'll have to see. We'll see. It's one of those deals. But I think as far as the rest of the hobby stuff is going to go, I think a lot of it will play into where some of these companies go from here. Because we had the big story with the Golden purchase and all that. And then obviously Golden came and said that he divested himself with stock in the new company. So it means he has incentive to try to make it bigger. What that entails is in question. We'll have to see what that comes out to. We'll also have to see what goes as pertains to how they actually decide to keep the two companies separate. They talk about a firewall between them, but it's like the temptation is going to be there. And again, if my scenario plays out and PSA suddenly sending a bunch of slabs, they're going to put them on eBay? I don't know. Now, I didn't mention it wasn't really a big story for me. To me, it was kind of apparent, but I don't know if you guys know this. eBay reported, and this will be kind of the last story I'll touch on unless there's something you guys want to talk about. eBay actually mentioned that they did pretty good numbers for the first quarter of the year. So I don't know if you guys caught that, but eBay was absolutely killing it. I think it was like 800 million or thereabouts. Let's see if I can find it. In the meantime, if there's anything you guys want to talk about in chat, you certainly can. And then if there's nothing else, we'll wind her down. I have no issue with that. Here we go. I found it. Okay, beautiful. So when it comes to stuff like this, I do like to go to Sports Collectors Daily. It's a good resource for a lot of this stuff. So that's kind of where I like to go to get some of these stories if there's something that I think is interesting. So this will be the last one I'll touch on. So here, Q1, $871 million worth of sports cards sold on eBay in Q1. So it is still a very, very large marketplace, without question. So you can look at that. And that's with the pullback and all that. 20 million new sports, non-sports, and gaming cards were listed on eBay with an average of 139 sold per minute. Those are always fun stats. So there's a lot of value to it, very large, and it actually covers different categories. I'll include this link in the description for those of you that catch this on replay. You can check it out for yourself as a breakdown of different stuff. Here you go. Hockey cards went from 5.8 million to 22.4 million. So that category grew quite a bit. Some of these other ones also grew quite a bit. Football cards grew over 360%. Baseball, 192. Pretty good. Pretty good. Sales of soccer cards to 24.7 million. Fancy. All right. There you go. Interest in tennis cards. So there you go. eBay reported the category has seen 142% growth in sports cards in general from 2019 to 2020. There you go. So anyway, I will leave this link in there for you if you just want to scan it. If you're interested in stats like that, this is kind of fun. But now you know. 871 million in one quarter for eBay. Not too shabby. So now eBay can afford to charge less fees? Absolutely not. That's how they make money. More fees! PSA puts slabs on eBay. Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. I appreciate it, Ty. Thank you for that. Enjoy Golden plugging Giannis cards in his auction, ignoring they are down 0-2 in the series. I don't think that matters. Golden's job, I will say, Golden has his moments, but sometimes there are moments where he is very honest. And that is that his job as an auctioneer is to sell the damn cards. It doesn't matter what the situation is. They could be down 0-3. They could have already lost the series. His job is to sell the cards. It doesn't matter. He's always going to say that to the best of his ability, he's going to try to say that they're a good buy. Unless it's like so far out of whack that he can't, in which case he'll kind of, he'll shut his mouth or he'll try to mitigate it in some way and kind of make you look in the other direction. But as much as he can, his job is to sell cards. How he does it is like, gotta sell cards. However you do it. One other thing, actually, since you mentioned Golden, I'll touch on this one quickly. I did have some fun though. If you look at Golden's Instagram is a wealth of wonderful content sometimes. I didn't have too much time to spend on it this time around, but it was kind of fun talking about it. Golden was talking about the 86 Fleer Jordan card. 86 Fleer Jordan card. And he was talking about how at one point they had gone through about 40 of them during the height of the mania and everything. And apparently they're down to their last handful of them. So basically implying, hey, buy them now before we run out. We don't have any more. We haven't had any in the last 45 days, which could, by the way, could very well be true. A lot of that has to do with the fact that a lot of people who bought in relatively cheap on those cards has been able to make their money from it. The peak being the 700,000 sales, a bunch of them in the hundreds of thousands, multiple hundreds of thousands. If you were a person who bought them in the $5,000, $10,000 thing years ago, even selling it for 100 grand or 150 grand you're making a lot of money. So that's a good chunk of change. Doesn't matter how you want to present it. It's enough money for most people, especially if you weren't already super wealthy to begin with. I think the folks that are holding the cards, hoping they go up further, are not really going to be inclined to sell them anytime soon with the price not exactly at its peak right now. They're going to hope for some kind of surge. But the folks that have made the money out of it probably have already divested themselves. And the folks that paid at the premium are not going to want to sell at this moment either. So you're sitting with a bunch of folks who probably don't want to sell at this moment. And there's a real likelihood that he's telling exactly the truth. He had a whole stack of them at one point, and they've gone through most of them, either private sales or through auction. And now it's kind of done. There's really not much more for them to go through until maybe the price goes back up again, and then some other people will be coaxed to bring it out of storage. But in the meantime, you might not see so many 86 Fleer Jordans in the golden auctions. So just something to keep in mind. We'll see. Really, the only part of golden that has influenced me is lemon flavored Perrier. He does enjoy his Perrier, quite a bit of it, for sure. Okay, so I think I really have no moral objection to it. I can go get my other beer, refill it, and chill out. So I'm completely good with that. But otherwise, I can always let you guys go a little bit early here in the East Coast. We'll do it before the end of before we roll over into Saturday, and you got some time to get some rest and prepare yourself for Hobbypalooza. You already know it's a full stack card, live stream after live stream. So they're doing their thing for the next 2 days. Any last second comments or questions? Feel free to throw them in there. We can finish off with those, and then I think we'll call it a night. And I'll bid you all adieu, and you can enjoy the rest of your weekend here. Ziggy Palfy Golden is sitting on. We can only imagine. You know, it's probably rarer than the Wagners. Probably rare, easily better than Mike Trout's. So, that's easy. Brady's. You see that stuff all the time. Ziggy Palfy, the goat of goats. That's the real stuff. That's the stuff you really want a part of. So think about that. All right, cool. So I think that'll be it. Let's last call. So we talked about all the main topics I want to hit on. Like I said, any links, I'm going to put them in the description for you. I'll put in a little bit later on. I'll start putting in some of where people do pop in, like where Andy and where Jordan came in. I'll try to include some links to their channels as well, if you do check it out on the replay. I'm also trying to play a little bit better into it since some of this stuff is going in. If you do have the podcast feed, I'm going to try to include the dates and stuff at the beginning of it so you can at least kind of follow along and see where we are. Chronologically, I'm slowly getting caught up, but I'm also making some content that will actually appear on the podcast feed a little bit differently. One of them fell tonight, but if you were on the YouTube channel, you would have gotten it early. So the podcast is on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, wherever you get your podcasts, you can get that. Otherwise, YouTube channel is the hub for everything. Video or audio, it's all here. Anyway, so I think that's it. Have yourselves a good night. Hopefully you enjoy. If you do check out any Hobbypalooza, hopefully, give them some love. On your way out, if you could, do me a favor, I would appreciate. If you hit the thumbs up button, if you subscribe, if you haven't already, I appreciate that. Otherwise, hopefully you guys enjoy yourself. Have yourselves a great weekend. We will catch you next Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern time, same time. Have yourselves a good one. Take it easy.